We are back. Welcome back to another Hive Live. What did y'all know that the Hannah Gutierrez retrial was going to end so early? Because I did not know that it was going to end as early as it did. Let me know what y'all think in the chat. I know Kimmy already got us prompted with some questions. I see some people commenting. Let me know what you think so far, y'all. I have not watched closing arguments. I have not watched the end of the defense's questioning at all. I have not watched any of their witnesses. I thought I was going to have time today, but Costco dinner had me waiting there for over an hour for a pizza. So I didn't get to do the things that I needed to do after work today. Anyways, let me know what y'all think about the actual, the verdict. What are y'all thinking so far? As you can see, if you didn't know already on the thumbnail, Hannah Gutierrez Reed was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but she was not found guilty of evidence tampering, the whole drug thing. I was like, that one, I don't think that one's going to stick. I don't see how it really relates to the crime. They didn't have testing saying that she was high at the time. So why are we even talking about it? She threw away cocaine, right? Again, I didn't watch the finishing of the state's case. However, I don't see how they were trying to get it there. Let me know what y'all think. I am waiting for the timestamps in the backstage from Kimmy because I could not find it on the drive. So I do need the timestamps for the part of the case that we're going to watch. We are going to watch closing arguments, see if Baldy gets a little bit more on my good side, see if he does a better job than he did, or he didn't do the opening statement, but see if he did a better job than he did on cross-examination. If you've already watched the closing, let me know what you think about Baldy's closing statement. And let me know what you think about the prosecutor's opening or closing statement. She can't be opening him closing. But yeah, let me know what y'all think. I'm sorry I'm like a little bit all over the place because I literally just got back home, rushed to eat, then rushed up here to throw on my stream. And as you can see, my lighting wasn't even right and we just got started. Anyways, enough of me rambling. We're going to get into the content, but we first have to say hello to Bossy B. Come on in. All right, Bossy, thank you for coming on in and letting us know, or you didn't let us know anything, buzzing by. We're about to enter into the chat. If you are watching live, go ahead and make sure you comment in the chat box, letting us know that you're watching live. And also, give us your opinion of what you think about this case. So, not so far. The case is freaking over. Did we get a sentencing date yet? I don't know. I've been at work all day and then fighting with the Costco pizza makers. So I don't know if we have a sentencing date yet. But let me go ahead and say hello to the people that are watching live. We have Sarah saying hello, and welcome into the live stream. Nice to see you tonight. We have Time Lourdes saying hello, and welcome into the live stream. Nice to see you tonight. We got Smalls, a member and moderator of the channel, saying, what up, Bree Hive? Hope everyone is well. Hello to you as well. Welcome in. Nice to see you tonight. Let me know your thoughts on the case. I know Smalls said she wasn't really keeping up all the way with the case. Let me know if that changed. Did you start watching it more? Kimmy Locker, our member, our moderator, started the show for me today, consultant of the channel, paralegal of the channel. Shout out to Kimmy, giving me the links to the videos that I actually need to pull up. Welcome into the chat and also backstage. I see you back there. Welcome in. Nice to see you tonight. Saying hello. I agree with both verdicts, but I wouldn't have disagreed if the jury found her guilty of only negligent use of a firearm as a lesser included. I thought that's what it was going to be. Kimmy is the one that actually told me that it was the higher level one doing a lawful act that I guess it still makes sense to me. But I guess I agree with Kimmy that I wouldn't be disappointed if she was guilty on the lesser charge either. But the higher charge does also make sense as well. So I feel like I knew she was going to get a guilty verdict. However, I still don't know about the sentencing. I know we had a couple of people in the live stream on Tuesday saying that she shouldn't go to jail at all. I think she should go to jail. I get that people don't want like the big dogs to get away with it and they do no jail time. They have better lawyers. I mean, I don't Alec may be in the same position in July. The other people, Dave Halls, Sarah, what's her name? Sarah, what's that lady's name again? I forgot her name that fast. I forgot. Anyways, now I'm really trying to think of her name. I'm saying I'm gonna move on, but now I'm really trying to think of her name. But Sarah, the prop manager lady, she also did not get charged. Had a good lawyer. She didn't even get charged. Dave Halls at least got charged. So I understand wanting Hannah not to be the only one that suffered, but at the same time, that was like her literal job. I understand she took on 2 jobs at once, but honestly, that's not Halyna's fault. I mean, I don't know if she helped put the team together. Maybe, I don't know if even if she did help put the team together, did she deserve that? I'm gonna say no. And 18 months, y'all, it's really not that long for someone who had years and years and years of life to still live. So I don't really feel bad if she goes to jail. I'm sorry. Time Lord says, hey, to Lady Drakeness. Just me, MD. Hello, welcome back into the live stream saying, hey, Bree Hive, sending love from East Texas. As always, welcome back. Nice to see you tonight. Brendan Myers says, verdict was semi-fair. Yes, she had a job to do and maybe didn't do it, but she also wasn't the only one involved. I just hope AB has some accountability. I'm hoping that he also gets a guilty verdict. I think they all should get in trouble. Like, don't get me wrong. I think they all should get in trouble. I think they're doing the right thing by suing the production company because they should get in trouble. We can't send companies to jail. We can only send the people that work for the companies if we're able to pierce the corporate veil. Criminal charge to a corporation, I don't know much about that, but I'm assuming it can only really be a fine and shutting down your business, maybe. I don't know. But to me, 18 months is not a long time when we're considering that someone lost their life. So you had a job to do. I agree. There were other people that also contributed, but I don't know if you guys saw that the jury asked a question about an intervening cause, a superseding intervening cause that will basically take the blame off of Hannah. Apparently, they didn't find that there was one. Otherwise, they wouldn't have found her guilty. Like I was saying in the streams multiple times before, unless she could say, like, I gave the gun to David Halls and he took the bullets I put in and said I did it wrong and put new bullets in, then that would be a superseding intervening cause. But they didn't have any evidence like that. So you're still to blame there, okay? So, but no, I definitely agree. I think they all should be held accountable. Like I said, some people just have better lawyers. And like, the jury already asked questions about the superseding intervening cause. I know Alec was the last one to touch the gun. He pulled the trigger, all the things. However, Alec might have better lawyers than Hannah that can cast that reasonable doubt that the jurors say, not guilty. It was the armor, because they're going to blame it on Hannah, and Hannah has already been found guilty. Like, maybe if they did Alec's case before, maybe Hannah wouldn't have been found guilty, although I still think that she should. But now that Hannah has been found guilty, I don't know who set this up and why they put it in this order. Probably so that Alec doesn't have to go to jail, because they're going to blame Hannah. That's insane. I didn't even think about that. That's insane. Just Me MD says, I did not realize her max was only 18 months. That was shocking, though. I still don't see her doing much time at all. I don't think they're going to give her the full 18 months. I just don't know how to gauge it. Maybe the judge feels sorry for her. I don't know. But yeah. The Young Legend says, greetings and salutations. Hello, welcome back into the live stream. Nice to see you tonight. Kimmy Locker says, to Just Me MD, yeah, I could see her being sentenced to time served. Well, she's going to have some time. I think she's going to get some time served because they remanded her. I mean, I didn't see that coming. I did not see that coming, but it looked to me like they didn't even handcuff her after they walked her out of the courtroom. Normally, they put the cuffs right on you in the courtroom in front of everybody, but I didn't see that. Tell me if I missed it. Let me know. It looked like they opened the door for her and then maybe put her in handcuffs. I don't know. Maybe she's going to a nice, comfy cell. I don't know. Let's see. I was finishing reading. Time served or not at least probation for any remaining time. And they could do that. They can give her a suspended sentence as well. And basically, if she F's up again, then they can send her back to jail. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do a suspended sentence. Connie Cat says Hannah's interviews made it hard to believe she took safety seriously. I agree she needed jail time. Especially when she brought her lawyer, it's almost like she was playing around. Was I the only one that got that feeling? Like she was laughing and joking. I understand that the detectives were trying to be nice to loosen her up and all of the things, but it's like she's laughing and giggling as if someone didn't just die because you didn't do your job. Come on now, girl. And then Baldy offering extra information like, oh yeah, why don't you make the state's case for them? And then now you're in court trying to defend what you let your client say in an interview. The young legend says she'll be a trustee working in the library. I had overdue books checked out longer than her sentence. Exactly. The 18 months, that's nothing considering that someone lost their lives, in my opinion. Brandon Meyer says, no blame off Hannah. She had a job to do, but she also was constrained, and the civil cases hopefully will show that. Yeah, and I don't think, although they found her guilty, y'all, I don't think they didn't feel for her. And I'm not a juror. I haven't talked to any of the jurors, but I think they understood what was going on. But I think that testimony from so many people that it doesn't really matter. The armorer has the power to slow things down. I think that's what kind of screwed her over. Like saying, yeah, there's no safety protocol. I mean, there's no protocols when it comes or rules when it comes to being an armor in the film industry. However, everyone that has been on a movie set knows that only the armorer handles the gun. Although the movie industry hasn't put in standards, everyone else on the set knew this but you. Like, you're the armorer. And then to me, it was very telling the way she wasn't even handling the guns right. And I don't even deal with guns, and she's still not handling them right? So I agree with Brandon there. Kimmy Locker says, I think the trials happened in this order because Baldwin charges were initially dropped, so everything started all over for him. Oh, that makes sense. I forgot about that. His charges were dropped. Just Me MD says, Alec Baldwin still don't feel he will do any time. I don't think he will. Like I said, if they find him guilty, I'm thinking maybe a suspended sentence, maybe probation. I don't know. But I think he's going to have better lawyers. Like, I'm sorry. I think he's going to have better lawyers, and they're going to be able to cast whatever doubt they need to cast. Small says, don't forget to hit the like button. Yes, of course. Thank you for the reminder. I was going to get there, and I'm happy you got there first because I probably would have forgot. So yes, guys, if you haven't already hit the like button, please do. Let's see where we're at here. We are at 19 viewers watching live with 17 likes. Let's make our like goal 40 likes for the live stream. If we can hit 40 likes for the live stream, we would have accomplished a goal. I don't know. I don't have anything to give away, but it's pretty exciting to hit our like goal for the stream. Brandon Meyer says to Just Me MD, agreed, he'll be guilty, but no time served. Okay, so everybody thinking he's going to get like a little smack on the wrist, right? Probably, I mean, he has the money to get a smack on the wrist, right? Kimmy says Baldwin has the same judge, so if he's found guilty of involuntary manslaughter, he better be immediately remanded as well. Do we think that's going to happen? I don't even remember them putting the handcuffs on her hands. Let me know if I missed it. Because I did watch it on like a short rather than the actual video. Kimmy says, I could see him not being immediately remanded or serving any time if he's only found guilty of the lesser included one, though. I'm thinking, I don't know. I kind of feel like he's not going to be found guilty. Not because I don't think he's guilty, but because I think he's going to have better lawyers and they're going to cast doubt. And they're going to put, look, Hannah was already found guilty. If she didn't do what she did, then I couldn't have done what I did. So was it me? I didn't know there were live bullets in there, right? Just Me MD says, question, most of the civil suits are done, right? I believe the husband is now one of the producers. Yes. I don't know if most of the civil cases are done. I know some of them are. I know some people have settled within cases, but there are some that are still open because they're still suing other people within the case. And the husband did become one of the producers because they're finishing the movie and they're thinking like giving him the money from the proceeds. But who is really, let me know in the chat, who's really going to watch this movie? Like, come on now. Just knowing the history behind it. Connie Cat says, thank you very much for hitting that like button. Just Me MD says, Hannah was/is the low-hanging fruit. And she is, but Just Me MD, it was her job. It was her job. So I agree, but also, stand up for yourself. Brendan says, oh, I won't. Kimmy Lockett says, the judge specifically said Hannah was being immediately remanded because there was a death. So if he's found guilty of the same charge, then his lawyers shouldn't matter. That is true. They did say that. So that is true. If that's their policy, they better follow it with him. But I also think maybe she just won't say it out loud. Even if he is remanded, they probably won't say it out loud. Because the judge just said it out loud. No one's letting me know. Did they put cuffs on her before she walked out the door? It didn't look like it. Like the bailiff was opening the door as she walked out with no handcuffs. Okay. So let me go ahead and go in the back chat and say, okay, her name was Sarah Zachary. Thank you, Kimmy. And I thought I typed this to you. I never push send, but you still got the link for me. So I definitely appreciate you for that. Let me go ahead and grab that. Where is it though? I have the same one, but I don't see it. I only am like at day 8, Kimmy. I don't see the link. Oh, never mind. Ha ha ha. JK, it's me. I don't know how to use a Google Sheet, apparently. Oh my gosh. Let me go ahead and pull it up for us, and then we will get started. Here we go. Let me pause it. Pause. Okay, let's turn this. This is the one that I use too, News Nation, because they don't put a freaking logo on it. Like they own the thing. Okay, so let me close that down. All right, y'all. We are going to be watching the closing of the Hannah Gutierrez Reed Rust shooting trial that resulted in the unaliving of Halyna Hutchins. We're going to start off with the state. I'm probably going to be making commentary throughout, but I'll try to be quiet as much as possible. I'm going to press play. Let me know if you guys are able to hear it by just dropping a little 1 in the chat. That should be helpful. I want to make sure I'm not just staring at a screen and y'all can't even hear what's going on. So let me go ahead and share the screen first of all. That would be helpful in what we're doing here. And let's jump right into, oh wait, we don't have Bossy the Bee. Bossy the Bee, do your job. I feel like Bossy the Bee, and when I say Bossy the Bee, I mean like me, have been slacking and making sure that Bossy the Bee is doing her job and going across the screen. So here we go.
May it please the court, counsel?
Let me know.
I want to begin by thanking you all for your time. I know that this has been a long trial, and I also understand that as jurors, you find yourselves maybe a little frustrated. There's a lot of sitting around and waiting, and we appreciate your time. We appreciate the sacrifice that you make when you leave your jobs and your families and your other responsibilities, and you come to court to participate in a very, very important part of our justice system. So on behalf of the state of New Mexico, we thank you very much for your time. Okay. And as you can see on your screens, we end exactly where we began, in the pursuit of justice for Halyna Hutchins. I want to start by just generally outlining Hannah Gutierrez failed to maintain firearm safety, making a fatal accident willful and foreseeable. And please keep in mind that omissions can also be willful. So if we fail to do something that we should do, and that failure results in someone's death, then that too can be willful. So I would ask you to keep that in mind as we move through some of the evidence and testimony that you have heard. I know that you have heard a lot, and I do not intend to keep you too long, but I do have to be thorough. I do want to hit some high points. So I do appreciate your patience. Here's what we saw. These videos, if you recall, that were taken by Production Outfitters, they were taken on October 13th of 2021. What these demonstrate to you is that Ms. Gutierrez was unwilling to maintain proper firearm safety repeatedly. And it's really important because this is not a case where Hannah Gutierrez made one mistake, and that one mistake was accidentally putting a live round into that gun. That's not what this case is about. This case is about constant, never-ending safety failures that resulted in the death of a human being and nearly killed another. So let's talk about all of the safety failures that we saw. And the reason that these safety failures prior to October 21st are so critically important to the analysis is because they go to foreseeability. And foreseeability is a very important element in this case. So as we can see here, we have our stuntman with his double barrel shotgun. From watching those videos, what you understood is that Ms. Gutierrez did appear to, in fact, be present, because at times we saw her and at times we heard her. So she wasn't off doing prop duties. She was right there and she never intervened. Gun pointed at a child. Gun pointed at Joel Souza directly at his back.
Oh gosh.
Gun pointed up in the air in the direction of the stunt coordinator.
Ugh.
Gun pointed again, apparently in the direction of Mr. Souza, the person on the far right. Gun pointed directly at Mr. Souza, again, the firearm in the left hand of the stuntman who is facing you. Firearm pointed directly at a minor child. Firearm pointed directly at the camera.
These are horrible. Why are they so dark?
Ms. Gutierrez, holding that same firearm with the muzzle pointed at her own face.
Yeah, that one got me. It's like you're not even handling it correctly.
This was
so how are you going to teach anyone else how to do
unexpected. Ms. Gutierrez stood by and did nothing in between scenes when that stuntman, who had certainly been sent the message that he could do whatever he wanted with those guns, no one was going to intervene. The person tasked with intervening was not going to do it. That was clear. He hands the firearm to the child and allows the child to manipulate the gun before then, after a short period of time, perhaps thinking better of it and taking the gun back. This firearm, I actually don't think in this photo that the firearm is pointed at the child. I think the firearm is, based on the angle of the camera, probably more pointed at this person right here. But she's there. We hear her, we see her. She does nothing. Absolutely nothing. This is some of the first evidence that we see where if something doesn't stop, if something doesn't change, she is moving in the direction of potentially a fatal incident. And that is exactly what happened. And I want you to recall Ms. Gutierrez's interview on November 9th, when Ms. Gutierrez spoke of the accidental discharge with the other stuntman, having a complete lack of understanding of her role in safety on this movie set. She's talking about Sarah Zachary, and she was like, well, yours just went off in there after you loaded it. And I said, yeah, well, I can't be responsible for every dickhead fucking stunt guy that gets a hold of the gun and doesn't understand the concept that it's hot.
Wow.
Her entire job
that's
is to be responsible for exactly that. And when she took this job, she agreed to that responsibility. There is no exception in the law for you're young. The exception in the law does not exist.
You gave up on that.
The law treats everyone the same, and it must. What was the point to the testimony about the lever action rifle? Well, here's the point to the testimony about the lever action rifle. More negligence, more carelessness, more lack of attention to safety. She loaded a lever action rifle with dummy rounds that, by the way, according to the director, was completely unnecessary. Because yes, while it's true, this gun operates in a way where if a certain type of camera angle is hitting it, dummy rounds would be appropriate if the scene calls for loading or cycling. There wasn't a scene that called for that. So she just loaded a lever action rifle with dummy rounds and surprisingly put the wrong caliber round in the gun.
Surprising though?
That is absolutely an example of someone who is not paying attention, not taking their job seriously. I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the rounds that you've seen because it's critical to tracking the existence of the live rounds on this movie set. And we have spent a lot of time and effort tracking those rounds around that movie set. And we're going to show you that evidence right now. So the important thing to know is that the Seth Kenny dummies, which you are looking at right here, are patinaed. They are distinct. They have an antique coloring. They also have silver primers. These rounds did not come on that movie set until October 12th. Of 2021, because Mr. Kenny didn't have them. And if you recall his testimony, he was in Texas. So he had to get back, clean them up, and provide them to Sarah Zachary. And that took place on October 12th. This is just simply the primer side of those rounds. You can see that they're dark in color on the primer side, and they do appear to have silver primers. This is a photograph of the 3840 dummies. If you recall Mr. Kenny's testimony, the 3840 dummies came from Billy Ray. And the important thing about this photograph is that none of those dummy rounds had silver primers. And silver primer is a very important piece of this puzzle. This is those same rounds on their side. You can see that they are shiny brass. We also know that they have brass primers. We just saw that. Based on Mr. Kenny's testimony, you know that they were 3840, that there was also some 4440 caliber rounds in that box. Does that matter if they're not working? Well, let's stop. Okay.
I put a poll in the chat. Do you find her argument?
Let's take a moment to talk about
You don't have to vote right now.
all this testimony that you've heard about whether or not the live rounds found at PDQ, which are photographed there on the left, match the live rounds found on the set of Rust. You don't have to be a gun expert to look at those and see they simply do not match, even though you could look at those rounds and fundamentally understand that they are not the same. The police department, sorry, the sheriff's department sent them to the FBI for testing so that we could actually have some experts confirm what we can see with our very own eyes. And what you have in evidence, if you want to see them in real time, you have States Exhibit 79, you have States Exhibit 91. States Exhibit 79 is a disassembled live round from PDQ props. States Exhibit 79 is a disassembled live round from the set of Rust. You can look at them. You can see the projectiles are different. You can see that perhaps the primers are even different. If you recall, Ms. Popple indicated there were only 10 silver primered live rounds found at PDQ. The rest of them were brass. The other thing that you can just see with your eyes is gunpowder in these is substantially different. It has a different chemical composition. So any argument that could ever be made in this case that Seth Kinney was the source of these live rounds is absolutely dishonest.
He could have more types of different live rounds.
Now, I'm going to ask you to
we'll let her have it.
Take a walk in the weeds with me here, okay? This is a photograph of October 10th of 2021. You can see the color of the rounds at the top. Those are brass primered rounds. The rounds in the bottom appear to be lighter, and I would suggest to you, based on the totality of the evidence that we're going to go through, that you are looking at live rounds. And keep in mind, anything that you see on the set of this movie that is a revolver ammunition, prior to October 12th, if it has a silver primer, it's a live round. Because the silver primered dummies didn't come on set for 2 days after this photograph was taken.
I guess
here's our comparison photo that Mr. Primo put together for us.
Was the silver one.
And if you need it when you're reviewing the evidence and doing your deliberations or engaging in your deliberations, I have included it for you. But we're going to do a comparison.
These are not the best pictures.
Now, the importance of this photograph, still October 10th of 2021. There appears to be revolver ammunition in the background there at the top. 2 of those have silver primers. The problem with that is the silver primer dummies weren't there yet, but the live rounds were. And there's your close-up. It's absolutely undeniable. Is it blurry? Yes. Yeah. Can you clearly see the difference? Blurry. Absolutely. All of these photos that you're looking at were October 10th.
I don't like those pictures.
Now, let's move to October 13th of 2021. I invite you to look at that photograph carefully and ask yourselves, which of these is not like the others? It's the third one from the left.
Oh, really? I thought it was the one on the end.
Of that projectile, and look at the color
to the left
of the brass.
The left one looks weird
So
too.
On October 13th, Mr. Kinney's dummies have arrived on set. They are the only dummy rounds with silver primers, but they are patinaed in color. So when you look at this round,
I couldn't see the difference.
It appears to be a spot-on match
also don't have
for the live rounds. But unfortunately, we can't see the primer in this photo. So we can't tell if this is a brass primered dummy. That's the reason that we watched thousands of videos and looked at thousands of pictures, because then we moved to the production outfitter videos from October 13th, the same day. And we're looking at that same gun holster that was provided to Mr. Baldwin. And there you see it. The third one down has a silver primer. And now you know it is a live round. You know that because it's not a Seth Kinney dummy. If it were, it wouldn't have that shiny brass color. So there's your live round. We've seen it on October 10th. We've seen it on October 13th. And there's absolutely no way that the lighting is playing tricks on our eyes when we're looking at these enhanced photos, because you see it frame after frame after frame. And now let's move to October 15th. Karen Kuhn arrives on set. I think she was probably there long before the 15th. She is taking photos. She took approximately, as she testified, 9,000 photos. So on the 15th, there it is. There's your silver primer. It's just been moved to a different location in the holster because they're pulling dummy rounds from here, there, and everywhere and putting them in belts and putting them in guns and doing whatever they want to do. But there it is. It's right there on October 15th. And if you think I'm stretching it, let's have a look at what we've got here. This is the gun belt that was assigned to actor Jensen Ackles. Because his gun belt was not a shoulder holster, we weren't able to find any photos or videos of it in the thousands and thousands and thousands that we reviewed because they're always covered by his coat. There is the evidence photo of the Baldwin holster on October 21st when it is taken into evidence. You have a Seth Kinney dummy at the top. You have what the FBI determined to be a live round in the second spot, and then you've got 3 brass primered dummies. October 17th, October 21st. So the video that Mamie Mitchell laid the foundation for, she said that according to her notes, the filming was done on the 17th. Mr. Primo said that he believed, according to the camera, it was the 18th. Pick whatever date you want. That's a match. Seth Kinney dummy at the top, live round next. You've got 3 brass primer dummies on the 21st, 4 brass primer dummies on the 17th or 18th. But it is shockingly the same.
The bullet
and there is no question
confuses me
that this one right here is a live round. It was sent to the FBI and they confirmed it.
I still don't know which one is the live round.
This is Ms. Gutierrez talking about
they talk about the colors.
Bringing these dummy rounds on set. I had a multitude of the ones with holes and the ones that you shake. So yeah, and I checked those all and I put them into 2 things. And then we start talking about boxes. Obviously, when she says things, she's talking about boxes. They usually had JS on them. This is one my dad sent me, and mine are usually beat up pretty bad, like they're very dirty and gross. She's talking about the box and the styrofoam insert. The box and the styrofoam insert, she's saying, are dirty. Hers, the ones that she brings on set, are dirty. They're not new and clean like some of the other ones. Detective Hancock asked her, this is the one that was or handed that you guys had said that you had pulled from. This is that moment in that interview where Ms. Gutierrez has already shown Hancock the photo from her dad, and an hour or 2 later, Detective Hancock decides that now is the time to show her the photo of the box of dummies she was pulling from that day, and it won't surprise you to learn they're a spot-on match. You have the styrofoam insert from that box of dummies here in evidence, and the reason that we gave it to you so that you can actually look at it in real time and not look at a photograph is because it's kind of dirty and gross. It kind of fits exactly the way that she described it. But there are some characteristics of this styrofoam insert that are going to become more important. Any suggestion by the defense that somehow the box of dummy rounds that Ms. Gutierrez said she was pulling from was swapped out with something different is absolute nonsense. First of all, you know that because you can see the live rounds. If you don't think you can see them on the 10th, and you don't think you can see them on the 13th, and you don't think you can see them on the 15th, you know you're looking at one on the 17th and 18th. You know you are. So where does the sabotage theory go then? The 17th and 18th, the camera crew hadn't quit yet. Mr. Norvell wasn't on set poking around on the prop cart. Mr. Halls hadn't had an opportunity to spend any time with the gun.
Means already came, right?
They moved directly from that cart right into Lieutenant Benavidez's patrol unit. They go from that patrol unit right into evidence at the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department. And on November 9th of 2021, Hannah Gutierrez shows Detective Hancock, now Corporal Hancock, the box of dummies that she and her dad have. And if you listen to Mr. Kinney's testimony, what you understand is that the ammunition from the previous set, that being the old way, Hannah brought leftover dummies from that movie onto the set of Rust. And those 45 long Colt dummy rounds were provided by Thel Reed. What you are looking at in this photo is this styrofoam insert. This is the styrofoam insert that had the live round in it. This is the styrofoam insert that came out of the box labeled 45 long Colt dummies with the JS in the middle. Now, let's put it together. Our original evidence photo up here from October 10th, you can see this distinct sort of cut in the styrofoam on that insert that is sitting on her leg on the 10th.
She's going to say it's not my styrofoam.
Hole in the styrofoam in the
prosecutor's 2 steps
second to the right at the top is dirty. You can see a little bit of grime. You can see it right there. And you're going to take it into evidence and you can look at it closer. You're going to see that there's some damage to the styrofoam separators between these 2 holes. And what do you know? It's right there. There's a little bit of damage to the styrofoam separators down here. You can see it in the photo on the right. You can look for yourself. It is right here. And what do you know?
I think it's her styrofoam.
That silver primer round from October 10th is sitting in the exact same position that it was found on October 21st when the Sheriff's Department collected this box, took it into evidence, and photographed it. Ladies and gentlemen, we call that circumstantial evidence. That's a mountain of circumstantial evidence.
The above shot is way better than
Prop assistant duties versus armor duties on October 21st of 2021. Let's focus on that day. And listen, I'm not here to tell you that Rust Productions did the right thing when they hired on a part-time armorer and asked her to also spend her time doing props. I think everybody who has testified has said that was a really bad idea. And that's probably part of the reason that they're being sued by a whole bunch of different people.
Yeah, agreed. I agree with that.
On October 21st, this was simply not the case. It was not the case on that day. She had 3 hours in the morning waiting for the camera crew to arrive. She had every opportunity to go through that box of dummies. Gee, that only had like 30 rounds in it. How long does it take to pull the round out of the box,
Do that.
shake it, and if it doesn't shake, look to see if it has a hole in it, put it back in the box, and do that to each and every one of them? How long does that exercise take? 10 minutes max? That's not hard. The other thing that is very important is Ms. Gutierrez didn't get pulled out of the church because she had to go focus on prop duties. She left the gun in the church contrary to all the industry standards for armors on movie sets, for firearm safety on movie sets. And she went back out to her cart so that she could start doing other armor duties. She's getting her fanny pack filled up. Well, we've seen that. She's filling it with blanks. And we know they're about to do a turnaround. They're going to do this quick insert with Baldwin. And then they're going to do the shoot scene, the gunfire scene where they're using blanks and the law enforcement have come into the church and there's a shootout. So she goes to get ready for it. She just leaves the gun in there. As you heard from many witnesses, she would leave guns unattended all the time. There was nothing unusual about October 21st that caused her to be unable to stay in the church to properly perform her duties. She leaves the gun. She goes back out because for some reason, with the 3 hours of free time that she had in the morning, she didn't get her fanny pack filled up. She didn't get herself ready for that turnaround. So she leaves the gun. Everybody's heard armors don't leave the gun. Now,
Hannah's not
let's
happy.
move over to our tampering with evidence charge.
Not
How is getting rid of a bag of cocaine tampering with evidence related to involuntary manslaughter? Well, on October 21st, 2021, the shooting occurs, the incident occurs. Ms. Gutierrez understands that someone has been seriously injured. She does not yet know that that person is not going to live or has already died. She gets interviewed at the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office. I will say, surprisingly, 2 occasions after this incident where a helicopter had to come in, ambulances had to come in, Ms. Gutierrez, on 2 occasions after that incident, spoke about her concerns about her career. Wow. That gives you an idea that you are dealing with someone who is not particularly concerned about the health and safety of others. And her job was to be concerned about the health and safety of others.
Yeah.
But on that day,
she just didn't want to lose her spot.
She's just thinking about herself. She's put a lady in the hospital, a man in the hospital. She asks to be escorted to the bathroom. Corporal Hancock agrees to do that. And we have her on video on the way there expressing dismay about how this will affect her career.
And she doesn't want people looking at her. That was
after the interview, Hannah goes back to her hotel. Rebecca Smith goes to Hannah's room. She's been summoned by some other folks to try to sort of sit and visit and give Hannah some support. So Rebecca Smith goes to her room, and Rebecca Smith is the person that tells Hannah that Halyna Hutchins has now died. And you have to understand, in the mind of Hannah Gutierrez, this investigation went from this big to this big. Because the difference between shooting someone and them living and shooting someone and them dying is a really, really big difference. So she is told by Rebecca Smith, investigation just got giant and very, very serious. So after receiving that information, she offloads this bag of cocaine to Rebecca Smith. Rebecca Smith is a lady that's lived a life. She's used cocaine before, many years previous, but she's used cocaine. She knows what it looks like. She knows how it's packaged. And because she's a former addict, she tosses it in a trash can. When Mr. Bowles gets up here and says, I can't prove to you that it's cocaine, remember that when people destroy evidence to avoid prosecution, you don't have the evidence that they destroyed. They got rid of it. So I don't have to prove to you by some scientific drug test. I don't have to send that to the lab and get it tested. It's gone. That's the point of the charge.
That is wild to ask her to do that after you destroyed the evidence. No. I don't think they had enough. They didn't test her.
Let me digress a little bit and run through a couple of things with you. What's all this testimony about this inertia puller? And how does that play into everything? Well, as you heard from Mr. Haig, an inertia puller is a device designed for one task. It disassembles live rounds. That's what it does. Somehow I think the defense got confused about what our potential theory was, that we had a theory that Ms. Gutierrez was turning dummy rounds into live rounds. That was never our theory, because that would require quite a bit of equipment. There's no question. But to do the reverse is a whole lot easier. So if you're out of dummy rounds or you're running low on dummy rounds and you've got some live rounds around, you could probably turn a dummy round. I'm sorry, you could turn a live round into a dummy round in 5 minutes.
That's interesting.
Why does an armor on a movie set
that person using their
build
wheelchair
for an inertia puller? Well, obviously she had one. Now let's talk about the OSHA investigation. OSHA doesn't find any wrongdoing with individual employees, only employers. That's their job. They're just an agency that maintains workplace safety. Mr. Genoway confirmed when he was on the witness stand, it's true his memory was a little bad and Mr. Lewis had to refresh it for him, but he confirmed that Hannah's conduct on the set contributed to their findings that this was not a safe workplace. Please keep in mind that the OSHA investigation is not a criminal investigation. Critically and surprisingly, OSHA never interviewed Gabrielle Pickle. This is critically important because if they had interviewed her, they would have known the following things. Hannah was granted 10 armor days out of the 12 filming days, not 8. That was right there in the cell phone records. The training days, when Ms. Gutierrez is sending those messages saying, I want more training time, training days. She's not saying these actors, these adults, need more training time. She specifically requested additional training time to train the child, and it was refused because, first of all, it's a major liability issue, and second of all, the child was never going to fire a gun. So when she asked for the additional training days, they were denied. That's not the reason Halyna Hutchins is dead.
She was not focused.
Keep in mind, Gabrielle Pickle had a meeting with Hannah and offered her additional assistance so that she would be able to perform her duties effectively. She offered assistance from some of the other folks there on set to try to give her some relief. And keep in mind that on a movie set, the armorer has autonomy with regard to gun safety. The OSHA finding that Rust Productions failed to properly supervise her is surprisingly incorrect, because the armorer has no supervisor when it comes to weapons and gun safety on the movie set. Mr. Halls is just there to be a second pair of eyes. That's it. Now, I think there can be no question that Rust Productions was more than negligent when they hired Ms. Gutierrez, because she was not anywhere close to being qualified for this job.
Agreed. I think they are negligent as well.
In fact, if you recall, Gabrielle Pickle, to her credit, tried to get Ms. Gutierrez to implement a check-in and check-out system because 2 people had complained that there was a shotgun left unattended. People on the set were complaining about her. They went to production and said, hey, she's not supposed to do that. You can't just leave real guns laying around.
And
so Gabrielle Pickle goes to Hannah Gutierrez, asks for a check-in, check-out system. Hannah Gutierrez says no. Hannah Gutierrez says it's too difficult, it's too much trouble. Gabrielle Pickle didn't prevent her from being safe. In that instance, she did the opposite. She tried to improve firearm safety on the set, but keep in mind, the armorer has autonomy. So Gabrielle Pickle is not Hannah Gutierrez's boss when it comes to firearm safety. Ms. Gutierrez gets to do what she wants. Now, I can only imagine that after this chain of cases, all of that will change. So the defense has taken a shotgun approach to this case. Seth Kinney is to blame. Well, no evidence of that. Sarah Zachary is to blame. No evidence of that. Dave Halls is to blame. He shouldn't have taken the gun from her, and he didn't do a good safety check. Well, she is the autonomous decision maker with regard to gun safety. It's not that Dave Halls shouldn't have taken the gun from her. It's that she shouldn't have given him the gun and then turned around and walked away.
Your point. That's not her job.
The defense, Alec Baldwin is to blame for acting like a prima donna on the movie set and bossing people around. This is Hollywood, for heaven's sakes. I would imagine that's relatively common. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that his conduct was right. I am the person who indicted him. Alec Baldwin's conduct and his lack of gun safety inside that church on that day is something that he's going to have to answer for. Not with you and not today. That'll be with another jury on another day.
That was a good
Brian Norvell
to do.
The gentleman who goes and gets the prop cart and wheels it over and then puts his hand over the crime scene tape and picks up that dummy round and shakes it. You heard Mr. Bowles ask some questions that are intended to make people think that Mr. Norvell either took something off the prop cart or planted something on the prop cart. Well, keep in mind, he doesn't have to plant live rounds, because we've seen from the photographic evidence, those are there. They're floating around already. So live rounds were on set. They were not planted by Brian Norvell. But this man is not a mystery to the state or the defense. I made him come in and sit down for a 1.5-hour interview so that the defense could ask him any questions they wanted, and they asked him none. Not a single question. So what that means is that this is just all smoke and mirrors and deflection. They don't want the truth. We know the truth. You have seen it throughout this trial. And I will remind you that during one of the heated objection exchanges between myself and Mr. Bowles, you heard Mr. Bowles cry out that he was looking for the truth. Listen, I can bring a horse to water, but I cannot make him drink. If you want the truth, I'll bring the guy in. I'll make him available for you to talk to. Ask him some questions. Not a single one. It must have been that disgruntled camera crew. You mean the people who believed that safety on set was being compromised to such a degree that they left? That decision may very well have saved their lives.
That's true. They got up out of there. That day it went down. But it does kind of look a little suspicious.
The $60,000 question in this case, who brought the live rounds on set? You know the answer to that. I know the answer to that. I'm not telling you that Hannah Gutierrez intended to bring live rounds on set. I'm telling you that she was negligent. She was careless. She was thoughtless. She brought them on set, and you know from the testimony you heard, Sarah Zachary never saw her shake a dummy round. Dave Halls never saw her shake a dummy round. She didn't shake those dummy rounds. For all we know, those dummy rounds were floating around the set of The Old Way, and Nicolas Cage is lucky to have walked away with his life. So why does it matter that she brought live rounds on set? It goes to foreseeability. She had six live rounds on that movie set. The earliest date that I can track them for you is October 10th. We know that they were there from the 10th to the 21st. 6, and she failed to ferret them out for 12 days. What that means is that she wasn't shaking any dummy rounds. She wasn't testing anything. None of that stuff
Just
that her
trusted
lawyers
her
want you to think
dad
was so
that
difficult.
was
It
the
was none
right
of it's happening.
bullets, right?
It didn't happen the entire time. She didn't find any of them. And folks, if she's not checking the dummy ammunition during the pendency of the filming to make sure that those rounds that are designed to look like live rounds are in fact dummy rounds, this was a game of Russian roulette every time an actor had a gun with dummies.
True. Someone was going to get hurt if
Sadly,
it
for
wasn't
Ms.
Halyna.
Hutchins, her camera crew walked off set that morning, and that required her to go into the church and operate the camera herself. And that's what she was doing when the live round that Ms. Gutierrez put in Mr. Baldwin's gun was expelled from that firearm and went all the way through her body.
That is very sad. You should feel bad.
No one told Ms. Gutierrez to leave the church. No one called her out of the church. There wasn't a COVID protocol in place that prevented her from being in the church at that moment. You know from the production outfitter videos, she didn't care about her job. She let it all go. Mr. Bowles is going to argue to you that if Mr. Halls had just called Ms. Gutierrez back into the church, she would have done an additional safety check, and that live round would have been found. Well, for heaven's sakes. We all know that if she had been called back into the church for an additional safety check, nothing would have changed. Her safety checks didn't consist of pulling the dummy rounds out of the cylinder, shaking them in front of the actor and the assistant director, showing them that they're dummy rounds, and putting them back in. No one ever saw her do that one single time, even though that's industry standard. And the reason it's industry standard is because you can't tell a dummy round by simply spinning a cylinder and looking at the primers unless they are dummy rounds without primers. And that's kind of an interesting fact. We know that 6 dummy rounds without primers were not loaded into that weapon because one of them turned out to be live and very clearly had primer. Interestingly, though, she had 5 dummy rounds without primers in her pocket. In her pocket.
Wow. All
she had to do was put those in the gun, make sure that the 6th one either rattles or has a hole in it, and she's good to go. Because now, when the cylinder gets spun, you can see 5 of them without taking them out, that they don't have primers. They were in her pocket, and she didn't use them. I am going to have another opportunity to speak with you, and when I speak with you last, it won't be as long, I promise. And we will talk about some of our jury instructions then. But I do want to address some of the testimony from Dr. Gerald from OMI, because Mr. Bowles is likely to make an argument that there was some sort of medical negligence that contributed to Ms. Hutchins' death. And I want to talk to you a little bit about Dr. Gerald's testimony.
That's what they were trying to say was the
Here are the lethal injuries. The lethal injuries, blood loss from the wound. That was the primary lethal injury. Her blood was leaking into her abdominal cavity. Yeah. And a lot of it. And you saw those photographs. You saw the photographs of her clothing. There was a lot of blood. So the first lethal injury that comes from the gunshot is blood loss associated with it. And the second one, if you recall from Dr. Gerald, the wound to the lung was also a lethal wound. Keep in mind, that bullet went into her body. Important. It went through her rib. It severed her spinal cord. It punctured her lung.
You're talking about a breathing apparatus killed her.
And a few hours later, Ms. Gutierrez is telling Corporal Hancock that she's worried about her career. If you think that person would have done a satisfactory safety check if she had been called back to the church, I am here to tell you that I strongly disagree.
She's hitting some heavy points. She is hitting some heavy points to me. Let me know what y'all think in the chat.
Astonishing lack of diligence with regard to gun safety is, without question, a significant cause of the death of Halyna Hutchins. Did Mr. Baldwin also contribute when he pointed the gun at people and pulled the hammer back, and regardless of what he said to George Stephanopoulos, pulled the trigger? Yes, he is. And again, we'll deal with that another time. You don't escape accountability when you load a live round into a prop gun, tell the crew that it has dummy rounds in it, hand it off to an actor, and leave the room because he manipulated it. That's the whole point. That was the whole point to him having it. Of course he was going to manipulate it. It's foreseeable. Everything is so completely foreseeable. Imagine I hand you a gun and I tell you that it's basically empty and I walk away when in fact, I put live ammunition in it. You think an accident might happen? You think that accident is foreseeable? And listen, let's remember some of the testimony from Mr. Carpenter. Control is how we enforce gun safety. We do it with control. When she loses control, which she did repeatedly, anything goes. Anything goes there. I am going to complete the majority of the portion of my closing arguments with regard to the facts. The next portion will be with regard to the law. When I come back after Mr. Bowles has had an opportunity to address you, we will be asking for justice today for Halyna Hutchins. Thank you.
Good about that.
All right. What do y'all think so far? I'm going to go ahead and look at the poll and see if you haven't voted, go ahead and vote. Let me know if you think that the testimony was compelling. I think that she hit a lot of good points, but I want to know what y'all think. So make sure you vote in the poll. And if you want to give an explanation as to why you voted the way that you voted, please do go ahead and drop it in the chat section. If you guys are watching on the replay, don't forget to hit the like button. If you're watching on the live stream, don't forget to hit the like button. We have a live like goal of 40 likes for the stream. Let's see where we're at. We are at 26 likes with 24 people watching live. So if you have not hit the like button, I'm asking you to hit that like button so that we can reach our like goal for the stream, get more friends in here, and, say hello to the algorithm as always. I'm going to look at the chats that you guys have been leaving so far. I see some of you have been really active. Definitely appreciate it. We're going to see what the peeps have to say, what the bees have to say about all of this. And give me a second. Okay, we got 32 chats. So we got a little long ways to go, about halfway through. I'm going to look at the poll. So if you have not voted in the poll and you want your vote casted, make sure you do. This is for the live stream. It is in the chat section if you want. The question is, let's see. Do you find the state's closing argument compelling? The answers are yes, no, and neutral. I'm not going to give out where it's at right now, but y'all go ahead and put y'all votes in, and I'm going to check out the chats of what people are saying here. We got Brandon Meyer saying they didn't. That's kind of far back, so I don't know exactly what you're referring to there. Just Me MD says, I think they will do well in the movie because of the story behind it. As far as the rust, like people are going to go see it and support it, knowing that her husband is a producer and will be getting some of the funds. That makes sense for me. Kimmy Locker says to Just Me MD, I probably wouldn't have watched it if nothing had happened. You probably wouldn't even know about the movie. I don't think I've ever seen a movie with Alec Baldwin in it. I didn't even know who Alec Baldwin was until this stuff started happening. Okay. And isn't he like somehow related to Justin Bieber's wife? I found that out. They had to relate, and I barely know her either. Anyways, I don't think I've ever watched a movie with Alec Baldwin in, and I for sure have never gone to see a movie for the purpose of watching it because Alec Baldwin was in it. It's just maybe not my generation. I have no idea who he is. Keke Palmer. I'm sorry, but sorry for this man, but I do not know him other than in this case. Kimmy says, probably wouldn't watch it if nothing happened, but I definitely won't now because I don't want to support it in any way. And that's going to be the hard part about it. I think they made the husband a producer to try to get more people to watch it so that his family can be supported. So it's kind of like a lose-lose situation there, right? Brandon Meyer says they even let her take off all her jewelry and give her cell phone to her attorney, which I find weird. If you're remanded, all of your possessions go with you, right? That's my understanding. They're supposed to lock it up, and then when you get out, you could be wearing clothes that are from like 10 decades ago. But that is my understanding too. But maybe she didn't trust the police to hang on to it. So you're commenting saying that they didn't really put her in the handcuffs before they walked her out. If she goes to jail, she's going to be in a very, in my opinion, very luxury for what luxury can be in jail. I don't think she's going to be like in a bad area and like really suffering, but also I've never been to jail, so I don't know if any of it is not suffering, right? But yeah, you normally do take the things with you. You don't then get to pass it off to people and touch hands with people and all of. You're not even supposed to like really hug people afterwards, because they could pass you something. You can decide that you're gonna go on a rampage in the courtroom. You're not supposed to do any of that. Small says to Brendan Myers, they do sometimes let the person hand items to other and leave them behind. Depends on the CO and intake, etc. Like I said, I didn't even see them put handcuffs on her, so it's not surprising this far. Brendan says, I can see the patina. I don't even know what, that's the part that's confusing me because I don't know what these things mean. And I know they explained it several times in the trial, but I could not catch on. Barely even know that. I think the dummy round is just the one that looks like it, but the blank is the one that makes sounds, which sounds weird to me because I feel like if it's blank, then it shouldn't make it should not make any sound. I don't know. But either way, it took me like 3 episodes. It took me like 3 days of testimony to even understand that. And I don't know if I even have it together still. So Brendan Meyer says, nope, no silver primers on them. Again, I saw the silver primers, but were they saying the ones with silver primers were the actual live rounds? I think that's what they were saying. Brandon Meyer says, I saw 2 stubby ones, ? I saw like a elongated one on the left, a weird stubby one in the middle, and then they pointed to the weird stubby one next to that one. I didn't notice the one that they said was the one that didn't look like the others. And to tell you the truth, I don't think any of them looked alike. They all look mismatched to me. Most of them look mismatched to me, if not all of them. Brandon Meyer says, true. She did have time to check everything. Right. The camera crew left. People were doing things. Everyone said, oh, well, I had time to prep because we were late with the cameras. So we knew she wasn't going to check those, though. I think where she made a mistake is that she got those boxes from her dad, and she just figured her dad, he's so well known in this industry, he knows what he's doing. Not that I like it, but the state made a pretty good line in her closing argument saying that Nicolas Cage is lucky that none of these bullets hit him, because if they brought it from that set and then brought it to this set, they very may have been playing Russian roulette over there too. Unless they're storing it in their garage, maybe they went out a different day. It might not be directly from that set is my point. But yeah, so I think what she did by bringing those boxes from her dad, trusting her dad, it really screwed her up, because she basically felt like she didn't really need to work that hard, because guess what? My daddy already sorted these bullets out for me. But you still have to do your job. And maybe her dad should have accompanied her there and walked her through things. But she volunteered for this job that she just wasn't ready for. And I think that's where she messed up. Connie Cat says she was at the hotel smoking out with the night desk guy. She was busy. And the funny part about that too, they tried to call him out and was like, you wanted a relationship with her, didn't you? You wanted to be with her and she doesn't want to be with you. So that's why you're here testifying. Shut up, Baldy. You don't know what you're talking about. All of your arguments, they didn't make sense. Jazzy G, member of the channel, hello and welcome into the live stream, saying her police interview really hurt her here. I think it did too. She didn't seem that serious. Like, she was not serious in any of her interviews. And I think the state did a good job in pointing out that, hey, she was like, can I go to the bathroom? She didn't say this part. I would have said this part. People keep looking at me. Can I sit in your car? Because people are looking at me. People are looking at you. Are you serious? People are looking at Halyna and pumping things through her, right? We don't even know if she's conscious at this point. And you're talking about people are looking at you? Like, come on now. And then also saying, oh, I'm not gonna make it in this career now. You're darn right, because you on the set means that people may or may not get shot. It's Russian roulette, just like state said. So there's that. Connie Cat said her lawyer offered it could have been meth. That was unexpected. I missed that part. I'm not all the way caught up on everything. This kind of happened faster than I expected, and I had a lot going on this week. But how would that help her case? That is very unexpected, Connie. It's not cocaine. How do we know it's cocaine? It's meth. It's still a drug. Like, how is that helping your case? Please explain to me how that would have helped her case if it was meth instead of cocaine. Please, someone. Brandon Myers says, I don't really care about this part of the case. Yes, hard drugs are bad. Don't do them, kids. But this really doesn't connect to the loading of the gun. Not enough evidence for the for the drug charge. Completely agree with you. It would have been different if she was like, yes, she was acting kind of, anxiety. Someone just got shot. She was acting like she had anxiety, in my opinion, after the incident. But did it really seem like she was on drugs? Not to me. And I don't know how long drugs or cocaine stays in your system. Did they need to test her that exact day? Could they have tested her days after to determine? But just because she does a little what do they call it? A little coke on the weekends, right? Just because you do a little coke on the weekends doesn't mean that she's doing it the morning. I mean, she did have 3 hours to check the bullets and didn't check the bullets. So maybe that's where they were leaning with that. But at the same time, they didn't really have evidence. Like, sure, you can smoke weed, you can do cocaine on the weekends, does not necessarily mean that you're doing it on the job. So weird thing to bring up, because some girl said that this girl handed her white powder and then Hannah kept following up on it. She could have been following up on like a sweater or something, but saying maybe it's meth. Maybe it's meth didn't really help her case. Just Me MD says also another point, when you try to cut budgets to save money, especially when lives are at stake, it ends up costing more harm than money. Example, allowing nursing students to serve as an anesthesiologist. Well, some of them have to get their training, the nurses. So they're supposed to have supervision. Okay. Yeah. Like if she needed some training, she should have had supervision. Like she said, her dad is, well known in the industry. Maybe they should have hired both of them, but they probably wasn't paying enough money to hire both of them. Or maybe they should have had Seth Kinney on the set instead of Hannah and really teaching her the ropes of how to do this job. But also, Sarah Zachary testified that she was an armorer at some point on a movie where she had never even touched a gun before. So obviously these production companies are not really vetting their armorers, which is not good. But I agree with you. That's a really good point. They tried to cut corners, cut budget, not have armorers days. And then they hired the little, the intern straight out of school to be the armorer, right? And she already has this kind of high horse, in my opinion. It almost seems like she had this high horse thing, like, well, my dad is Thale Reed. My dad is Thale Reed, so I know what I'm doing. And I got this job and I'm only 24. That's what I imagine her doing, just with her behavior in the interviews and even in this court case. But I agree with you. They're trying to cut corners. It ended up costing someone their life. Brendan Meyer says, OSHA usually doesn't say a person did something. It's mostly the companies. Yes, the state did a good job in pointing that out as well. Defense tried to rely on any and everything. Just like if he got a little hair on his head, one little stubble, he would try to hold on to that one little stubble and say, I'm not bald. I am not bald. Come on, Brie, you are getting off topic. Stop talking about this bald man. But anything, like literally anything that he was like, oh, well, let me hold on to that. I'm sure he held on to his hair for a long time before he let it go. Kimmy Locker says to Brendan Myers, right? OSHA sets and enforces safety and health standards and investigate employer/working conditions. But unless there's an isolated incident, they're rarely assigned to blame employees. And the thing is, they blame the employer for not making their employee do the right thing, right? Brendan Meyer says Hannah wasn't focused because of many problems from production, but it was still her job to say this isn't safe. It's just sad, really. She's young and it's hard to stand up to your boss. That is true. But your daddy is Thale Reed. Stand up. Because you're not the only one getting in trouble, but the main person getting in trouble is going to be you. That's your job. And maybe she wasn't ready to accept this kind of job. I said that halfway through I was going to get to the thing, but y'all got comments coming in fast. Shout out to y'all. Thank you. But yeah, she's young, but come on. A year and a half is not going to hurt her in jail. And I don't even think she's going to get that long. And maybe, just maybe while she's in there, she can study up on how to actually be an armorer. This could be good for her. Brendan Meyer says, but it's her job to make sure the gun is safe. Yes, I agree with that. Kimmy says to Brendan Myers, if she wasn't willing and able to stand up to her boss, she shouldn't have accepted a position with life or death consequences. I agree with that. And I think that was a really good point, because I'm going to say this for the millionth time today. I haven't really, did I do my boss? No, I did Bossy to Be to get here, right? Okay. Brain all over the place. But I think that was a really good point that the state brought up. I missed that inertia puller thing, or I just haven't gotten that far into the testimony yet. It does seem like they were trying to take the cheap way out. At least Hannah was bringing bullets from home, potentially using an inertia puller to pull actual gunpowder out of the bullets in order to make dummies. So it's at that point, if that is what she was trying to do, I don't know if they were able to actually prove that. I don't think so. It sounds circumstantial. But if she was actually doing that, then she is willingly bringing live rounds onto the set so that she can make more dummy rounds. That's bad. That's really bad. So let me go on. Israel, I'm gonna mess up your last name, so I'm just gonna say Israel. If the person in charge of loading and securing dangerous weapons is inebriated or under the influence of drugs, it's worse than that when a forklift driver is high on weed. It's dangerous and wrong. I agree. I just don't think that they had enough evidence to prove that she was high. Israel says the prosecutor uses her glasses as a prop a lot, removing and placing them back. Oh, she does. I did notice that. I'm like, how is that helpful? It's very distracting. I'm glad you said something about it because I've noticed it, but I just didn't know how to take it. I did not know how to take it. Might be a part of her tactics. I don't know. Look stern and angry. I don't know what her purpose was. Brandon Myers says to Israel, agreed, but unless there's an accident, how do we know people are under the influence? Exactly. They should have tested her at that point if they had concern of her being on drugs. But I don't think anyone had concern of her being on drugs until the other girl came forward and said she handed me a bag of drugs. Now it's too late to really, it's not too late to consider it, but it's a little late to kind of find out if she was on drugs at that time. Because she could have easily picked up a cocaine habit 2 days after the shooting. We don't know, right? Jazzy G says, yeah, but they have no proof that she was inebriated at work. Yeah. Agreed. Brandon Meyer says to Jazzy G, exactly. If they did a talk screen, like a tax screen, how would that help? Right after the accident, maybe it would have been more important. Yeah, I agree with that. Agree with everything y'all are saying. Brendan Meyer says airline accidents require a talk screen right away. If they would have done it right away, that would have been a lot more helpful. ATC pilots, cabin crew, you do not leave until you have a sample for testing. And that's probably what they should have did. But again, they probably didn't even know there was an issue of drugs until the lady came forward saying she handed me cocaine. So there's that. Jazzy G says, yes, 100%. If they thought she was on drugs that day, no way they wouldn't have tested her. I just don't think they thought that at the time. Gabrielle George says, I'm surprised they didn't use the quote of hers. I shook the box most of the time or something like that. Yeah, she did say that. She would shake the box. Sounds like dummies to me. No, you have to shake all the individual ones, you dummy. You know some of them don't even have beads in them. How is that helpful? Israel says, sigh, she sounds like a really careless professional, to be honest. Sad that it led to a loss of life. I know. You honestly wish it would have just like went right past them, just to kind of, one, get her off a set, but also to make sure no one had to die, right? Brendan says to Kimmy Locker, that's easier typed out than actually acted upon. Income is required in our society, and I do not know the stress of life Hannah was under at the time. I don't know exactly what you're referring to there. I might have gotten rid of the comment on accident. Brendan said to Kimmy, I hope people could have morals and a firm line. They wouldn't cross, but humans are humans. We are far from perfect. True. Israel says to Kimmy, agreed. And plus all of her many responsibilities, I would think she would prioritize the lethal, most dangerous part of work. For example, making sure the gun was safe. And that was like a really big part of their argument. Well, they were also making her do props. His favorite thing. Have you ever seen her roll a cowboy cigarette? Sir, is that the only prop she helped with? Like, why do you keep talking about this cowboy cigarette? I don't get it. But also, Sarah also helped her with guns. So, trade a cowboy cigarette for a gun. That's what Hannah was doing. But it was important that it came out on that day that she left the church to go do more armorer duties. But you can't go do other armorer duties when your armorer duty is in the church. Because you thought the gun was safe because you thought you gave them a cold gun. Let's be honest here, okay? Because you didn't check. Kimmy Lockett says to Brendan Myers, humans are certainly imperfect and morals are subjective, but I personally couldn't care less what financial stress she had, wait tables, work retail, but don't endanger people's lives. I agree with that. I just don't think she was qualified, and she should have been honest with herself. Her daddy should have been honest with her and let her know that she wasn't ready. Whitney R. says the prosecutor, who I have not liked the whole trial, did a way better job than the defense. We're not even to the defense yet because y'all got the comments coming for me. But I'm not surprised that the defense is not going to be that good because he hasn't been good the whole time. Gabrielle George says it was so strange that the plot of the movie involves an accidental shooting. I didn't know that. Oh, yes, I did know that. I did know that. Oh, yeah, that's ironic, and it sucks. It sucks. Let's see here. We have Israel saying Gutierrez was either A, lazy, B, lazy and incompetent, C, lazy and high, which led to incompetence. Bad look all the way around. I just don't see how she could escape this liability at this point. I mean, they already found her guilty, so no, she's not escaping any liability. Brandon says to Israel, I'd say D, all of the above and lack of support from production. Yeah. And production, let's not forget, production does play a role in this. They suck too. Jazzy G says her dad didn't end up testifying, right? Whitney R says, nope, he didn't end up testifying. I haven't watched the defense, so I'm just going with what the chat is saying. He did not testify, according to the chat. He probably would have got himself in trouble if he would have testified. He pled the fifth on his daughter. And defense probably said, you know what? I'm probably going to run you in the ground just like I'm running your daughter in the ground at this point. So how about you just not show up there? Israel says, would you have recommended she wait for a lawyer before she made a statement? Absolutely. I think that's why a lot of the people who are saying now, there's two-part to this question. So absolutely, get a lawyer first. I think that's why a lot of the people that you think should have been charged, aka Sarah Zachary, who wasn't charged at all, David Hall, who was charged but got a plea deal like almost immediately. Alec Baldwin got charged and his charges dropped, and bad luck for him, they brought the charges back against him again. But I think if she would have waited to talk to a lawyer, she would have been in a much better position. Do I think that she still would have gotten charged? Absolutely. But I think with a lawyer, she could have at least maybe taken a plea deal or gotten a plea deal. Because like sometimes some lawyers suck and they can't even get you a plea deal. I can't remember if she actually had one or not and she turned it down. But second part of my answer to this question, yes, she should have waited for a lawyer. No, that lawyer should not have been Mr. Baldy. Okay, she should have got a completely different lawyer. He's not very good. He's not very good at all. So yes, she should have waited for a lawyer, and no, it should not have been Mr. Baldy. And for those, his name is not Mr. Baldy. He's just a bald man. I'm talking about Bowles. Israel says meth being better is a real doozy, right? It's like just meth. What do you guys? This is not cocaine. It's meth. How dare you insult me like that? Winnie R says the live rounds from the previous shoot, they apparently trained. Oh yeah, that is true. I forgot about that part. They apparently trained the actors at a real shooting range to train on how the fun kicks back, or the gun. I'm sure that's supposed to say the gun. The gun kicks back when shot. There were not live rounds in the actual film set. And so it sounds like they just ended up mixing them up, which is still bad armorer training. And maybe, Mr. Thel Reed, you should have checked it out before you let your daughter go in your garage and take all these bullets. Winnie R says, don't remember how I know this, but coke only lasts in your blood for about 3 days. That's what I was thinking too. I heard that somewhere before, but I wasn't too sure. I knew that it didn't last as long as weed does last in your system. But even then, like I said, she could have done it the day after. Like, how can they test the potency as well? because she could have only done a little bit the second day after, and it may have, dissolved in the same way as if she did it on the day. I don't know. Like I said, she could have picked up the habit after the shooting. Israel says, maybe it's meth, maybe it's Maybelline. Maybe it's meth, maybe it's Maybelline. Israel says, stand up for your rights. Yes, she should have. Brendan says she'll be fine after this. Like I said, she'll sit in there maybe 6 months, read a book, learn how to actually be an armorer. Is anyone ever going to hire you? There may be someone cheap enough to hire her again. She's going to try to redeem herself, right? Gabrielle George says, won't she be barred from owning a firearm as a felon? That is also true. Yeah. Because, at this point, she's been found guilty, so she will be a felon. So, you're right. Winnie R. says her lawyer was there for the second interview and still didn't prevent her from putting her foot in her mouth. He helped her. He lifted her foot to her mouth, man. He put his foot in her mouth at that point. That's why I said, yes, lawyer, Mr. Bowles, not him ever again. He needs to take his 88 trials off of his website. Okay. Gabrielle George says, my understanding is she turned down a plea deal that would have required her to say where the live round was from. Okay. That's good information. I'm going to look it up, but we're going to go with what Gabrielle is saying. She didn't want to say where the live rounds came from because you know who it probably came from? Her dad. Her dad is probably where it came from. She didn't want to be a snitch, but her daddy didn't even come defend her at her trial. Bad stuff. Kimmy Lockett says, don't forget to like the stream so we can hit our goal. Everybody, yes, of course. Thank you for the reminder. We are at 33 likes with 20 people watching live. Our like goal is 40. So if you have not already, please do hit the like button. It does help us out in the algorithm and it helps us hit our like goal for the stream. And I can do like the little air horn thing for y'all. So that can be a prize. All right. We already got one extra like just from that. Thank you. Let's see. Let's get into our poll. Do you find the state's closing argument compelling? I am going to say yes, from a lawyer standpoint. They hit on all the relevant facts. Maybe not all of them. She did kind of misstate some things, in my opinion, because I do believe that I heard someone, at least one person, say that they saw her shake him one time, at least one time. David Hall also said that she did her job well most of the time. Now, from what we've seen on these videos, maybe David Hall is not the best person to listen to because she was out here acting willy-nilly with the guns and letting other people act willy-nilly with the guns. So maybe David Hall is not the best person to trust. But I do think that the state hit on most of the important parts of the case to basically remind the jury of what's important here. This girl was willy-nilly. You can't be willy-nilly with guns, okay? Would you want someone being willy-nilly in this way with guns around your kid? Most people are going to say no, right? So I do think that her closing argument was compelling. I think it could have been a little bit stronger. Let's see. And then we got 75% of people saying yes, the closing argument was compelling, and we had 24 votes, so that's a pretty good majority of us. And then 12% said no, it wasn't compelling. Let me know in the chat if you feel comfortable explaining why you don't think it was compelling. Let me know. And then we got 12% as neutral. Again, not freaking adding up to 100%, YouTube. What's going on? Give us like some 0.3s, 0.1s or something, because I don't like that this adds up to 99%. Again, one day it only added up to 98%. And y'all, I'm usually not that good at doing math that fast, but sometimes I am, and I feel very proud of myself. But have to question, like, am I just not seeing it? Is it a 6? No, it's a 75. But let us know in the comments why you voted the way you voted. If you feel comfortable, I'll go ahead and end that poll. We still have to do the defense and then the state's reply. So let me stop talking so much. We got a couple of comments coming through. Cheryl C., member of the moderator of the channel, saying that's also my understanding of the plea deal. She had been offered, she turned it down because she's not no snitch. Okay. She learned the first rule of street code. She didn't learn the second. Don't talk to the police without a lawyer, but don't snitch either. She at least upheld the not snitching part. I don't believe she's from the street. I don't think she's had any street training, but you know, it's all fun and games. It's all fun and games over here on the Bree Hive. Oh, snap. What did I just do? Okay. So let me go ahead and click. Does his start like right after Kimmy? Let's get Bossy the Bee to bring us into the defense closing argument. Y'all, I don't got my stuff all the way together because Kimmy got the timestamps for me and I need to re-timestamp them. Body is right here. How do I get there? Control. Okay, y'all, I'm trying to get myself together. Oh, here, try this one. Boom.
Yeah, please, Cord.
Okay, give me 1 second. Let me actually get it shared. Okay, I am on the right screen. Sorry, technical difficulties. Not the best at doing these things. Let me go ahead and get our sound up and share the screen with y'all. Here we go.
Counsel.
It's Baldy's
Ladies
turn.
and gentlemen of the jury, I want to start also, as I did when this began, which I want to sincerely thank you for your time and attention and all of your work on this case. It's been hard. It's been a long case. And I want to thank you first. On behalf of Ms. Gutierrez Reed, who this is extremely important for her, this case, and this is her day in court. And it's extremely important that the government rule out every reasonable doubt that there is in this case, because that is our standard.
You didn't make any reasonable doubt.
Reasonable doubt is a concept, meaning if you have any reasonable doubt, if you have a reasonable doubt, we cannot convict people in this country. That's how it's set up. Because of that, the burden is on the prosecution, always stays on the prosecution, and so they have to rule out all of the reasonable doubts. In this case, I'm going to talk about a lot of the evidence soon, but I just want to start with the summary. The prosecutor just presented to you a series of pictures, and those were the pictures they paid the guy $10,000 to enlarge, and they went through the pictures, and they tried to show that there were silver primers, and this is going to be definitive evidence that these live rounds had to be on site at a particular time. Let me tell you why there's reasonable doubt, number one, that they will never be able to rule out in this case. Sarah Zachary threw away rounds. She unquestionably threw away rounds after the shooting. It's undisputed. We have no idea what those look like. We will never have an idea what they look like, and that will never be able to be overcome. That one fact alone prevents that entire picture setup that was just shown to you from being accurate, from being real. Because we have no idea what those other rounds, whether they had silver primers, whether they were dummies, whether they were other types of dummies, what they look like. We have no idea. Fact two on the pictures. Seth Kenney told you he had gotten live rounds from Del Reed that went to the 1883 set. Those live rounds were three types. There were three types of bullets. He then brought back around 125 of those of the three types. Now, the ones that the state seized, the prosecutors made a point of saying these don't match the live rounds. However, we don't know what he had because they waited a month to go get them. It was over a month when they searched. And when Mr. Kenney brought in the rounds, he had been talking to the investigator about what was going on in the investigation. So we're never going to have an idea as to what Seth Kenney had and what he provided, because he also told you in this trial he had no inventory system. He had no idea what was coming in and going out of his place. The place was a wreck. We got a train that hit it. There's no way for somebody to really understand what they're putting in, what they're going out. And so he also said there were things that went into the rust set that he hadn't inventoried, hadn't invoiced. He said that there were things that put on there that he didn't have invoiced. But here's the problem with that. We do not know that Seth Kenney only had those patinaed rounds. That's reasonable doubt. That's coming right from the government's witnesses, from Mr. Kenney.
I agree with him
that part
on that.
Is unreconcilable. But there is a reasonable doubt that will never leave this case on those 2 points, on the pictures and the live rounds. Now, Ms. Morrissey calls it dishonest for us to raise a question about Mr. Kenney. And I submit it's not dishonest at all, because they have the burden to investigate every possibility, every aspect, as anybody in Ms. Gutierrez Reed's place would deserve and would want, because their life is on the line as well on felony charges. And it's the government's duty to rule out all these other things. Far from dishonest, what it is thoroughness, competence, finding what happened with Seth Kenney, taking his fingerprints, taking his DNA, going through and searching earlier, doing that investigation, and finding out if indeed there's another possibility that they ruled out right away and they never wanted to look into, because they rushed to judgment on Ms. Gutierrez Reed from the very beginning. They singled her out on that set. They put her in a cop car, whether she asked or whether they put her in. She's in a cop car and she never leaves custody until after her statement. They singled her out and they rushed to judgment on her, and that's what you've seen ever since. Ms. Morrissey says a camera crew, and she mocks things that we raise as possibilities on the idea that none of it can be possible except Ms. Gutierrez Reed is guilty. That is the only thing that can be possible because I say it. It's not how it works. Ms. Morrissey said she indicted Mr. Baldwin. I indicted Mr. Baldwin. Actually, I think it's the state of New Mexico. That's not an individual person with that power. She also sat there when Miss Zachary was on the stand, and Miss Zachary, I'll remind you, got an immunity agreement. Miss Zachary was promised she would never be prosecuted. And Miss Morrissey stands up and says, there's no evidence against Miss Zachary. Well, then why would she give an immunity agreement? Why would she need immunity if there's nothing against Miss Zachary? She's given an immunity agreement, and then she's told on redirect examination by Miss Morrissey, remember, if you don't tell the truth, I can prosecute you. I will prosecute you. So Miss Zachary doesn't tell the version of the truth that the government believes is true. We saw the threat in live court. You can't trust some of the witness testimony in this case, and that will raise a reasonable doubt as well, I submit, because of things like that. Because the lead investigator admits that she practiced her answers and questions with the prosecutor. That's something you can consider. Are you hearing everything? Or are you hearing a one-sided version that fits the narrative that Ms. Gutierrez Reed has to be guilty because we picked her out first, and it's got to be her. Can't be Mr. Kinney, can't be anything else, any other possibility. Sarah Zachary has nothing to do with it, even though we know unquestionably she threw away rounds after shooting. That's undoubtedly going to be evidence, but there's nothing on her, apparently.
Let me pause it right there. I get what he's saying. Could there, the reasonable doubt, in my opinion, that he's trying to cast is that other people could have also played a role in it. And remember, we talked about the superseding, intervening, the what is it? Superseding interference. Hannah, even if Seth Kinney delivered the rounds, even if Sarah delivered the rounds, right? Even if Sarah knew about the rounds, Hannah would be a superseding, intervening cause. So could we also just charge Kinney and charge Zachary too? Sure, you could charge them, but that doesn't absolve Hannah. I think your point, like he's trying to lead the jury to a way that's irrelevant, in my opinion. But I'm gonna go ahead and play it. That's coming from me as an attorney. Like, sure, yeah, they potentially could the state have investigated Kinney more, sure. But how is that going to absolve Hannah? Because she was still doing the lawful act and being an armorer that resulted in the loss of a life because she was supposed to check the rounds. So whether Kinney supplied them or she supplied them or whatever it was, she was still supposed to check the rounds. I get maybe if Kinney did supply the rounds a little bit later on in time, then it wouldn't be as foreseeable. But it's also foreseeable that if you don't check the rounds, that you can kill somebody if there's a live round there. So either way, that's my opinion. I'm gonna let him finish, but I don't agree.
Second, these boxes. The idea that the boxes match. We heard testimony that these rounds were loaded in and out of these boxes daily. Nobody knows what was in them on the 13th, the 16th, the 21st, because the rounds were put in, they were taken out, and they were put in different boxes. So the boxes really don't matter. There's reasonable doubt all over the place.
They
boxes,
don't
we don't know what was in them 3 or 4 days
Sure.
before. Doesn't matter who brought them.
It
The boxes are
doesn't matter
interesting
who brought
because
them.
the
You're
government
right.
wants to match up the two,
You're
and they want to show the
arguing
pictures that
against
match. Yet all the ones from PDQ Props have the same label, the same font. They're from Joe Swanson. So those boxes are similar to the ones on set. So that part is not conclusive as well. The other part, when the government shows you video and only on the 13th and says Ms. Gutierrez Reed was lax on safety. Well, again, you're seeing videos from short snippets of time on one day, an entire movie set, and then you're not seeing what Ms. Gutierrez Reed may have done right after the clip. You're not seeing what might have happened right after that. The other thing that strongly rebuts all of the safety points Ms. Morrissey is pointing out about Ms. Gutierrez Reed is OSHA. Now, they try to downplay OSHA, but OSHA is a separate, independent state and federal agency that did a full investigation into the responsibility for safety failures on the set. And you can evaluate the credibility in your minds of Mr. Montoya, who took the stand, and how you thought he testified, whether you thought he was thorough and how he answered questions. He interviewed quite a few people, and he reviewed a lot of information. Their conclusion after that was done was that production was responsible. He said the root cause was production adopted a safety plan, and it ended at the word adoption because they didn't do anything after that. They didn't respond to complaints that there were safety concerns. They didn't allow for more training and take the time to do that. They did not respond to the negligent discharges and deal with that. Mr. Halls talked to one of the guys briefly, and that was all that happened. So you got to set that they're not allowing time for inventory for the army. They're not allowing time for them to clean their weapons or deal with their weapons. This is management. You just heard Mr. Pesh state that the first assistant director is the primary person for safety on that set. Dave Halls has been doing this 30 years. Somebody doing it 30 years has a responsibility and duty to step in when there's safety things going on. And he's on several of those videos. He has a responsibility to step in and say, hey, we're going to stop this. We're going to slow this down. We're going to have meetings. We're going to have additional safety training. We're going to address this. Ms. Gutierrez Reed, come over here. We're going to do this. We're going to talk to people. She also can come in and talk about that. And on those videos, they're both on the videos. But OSHA found, because of the lack of support, because she's a part-time armor, because she's not full-time, because there's not two of her, as Mr. Carpenter said, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. Well, here we didn't even have 1. We had a half. So she's trying to run around and do various things. She's a half a job on a set with over 20 guns, and they want to lay the complete blame on her in this case, as opposed to OSHA, who investigated as an official agency and made an official determination that this was production.
You cannot put a company in jail. What are you talking about?
That's an important finding, because they said all of this was caused safety-wise by management. As Mr. Sousa told you,
but okay.
The buck stops with production. The buck stops with production. As in any organization, it starts at the top. You don't go and take one of the lowest people on the call sheet after something bad happens, after the whole management team has just thrown safety aside in favor of money, in favor of speed, in favor of profit. You throw all of that aside, because at the end, you've got a convenient fall person. You got a convenient scapegoat. And she may not be the armor on some days. She's a props person, but she's certainly the armor when everything goes bad. You know why? Because despite OSHA's findings that they were responsible for production, the guys that you saw come in, the producers, the big guys, they want to sail off into the sunset and go on about their business, finish the movie, make the money, because they got the convenient fall person sitting right here. And all that has to happen is everybody has to gang up. Everybody has to have their talks after this happened.
I think part of the reason why she lost is because
that's what
the jury doesn't like bullets.
You had a production company on a shoestring budget, an A-list actor that was really running the show. He was directing people in those clips, telling the camera person where to go, telling the armor where to go. And then you had a situation where at the end, they had somebody they could all blame. It didn't work out with OSHA because OSHA didn't buy it. OSHA said it was the higher-ups. So here we are in a criminal court where the government tries to pin all of it on Ms. Gutierrez Reed. And it's just not the truth. It's absolutely right. We do want the truth. We want the truth and all the facts that were found by OSHA to be considered. We wanted all of the facts that you don't have in this courtroom to be considered, because that's the only fair way to do it, to resolve all reasonable doubt and to rule it out. If you don't have all the evidence, you can't rule out all of that reasonable doubt.
It's called circumstantial evidence.
I want to talk about foreseeability, and I want to play this for you. You probably remember that. That was the scene where Mr. Baldwin runs up the hill and cut is yelled. And right after cut is yelled, he shoots. That's, I submit, reasonable doubt. And I'll tell you why. Because Mr. Baldwin went off script. He chose to fire after cut was called. And you're going to see where he does later do the same thing.
So you knew that?
Mamie Mitchell told you on the stand, the script supervisor, that it was not in the script for Mr. Baldwin to point the weapon. It was not in the script for him to point the weapon. And we have to be very careful with facts when we're considering a criminal case and the beyond the reasonable doubt standard. That's extremely important, because Ms. Gutierrez Reed, nor anybody else, knew that Mr. Baldwin in that moment was going to point the weapon right at Halyna and Hutchins and Mr. Sousa.
You just said it was foreseeable that he would go off.
That is the concept of foreseeability.
Argument.
Now, Ms. Morrissey gave you an example of if I hand somebody a firearm that's loaded and then they go and do something with it and it hurts somebody. But here, what we had, she did not know Mr. Baldwin was going to do what he did.
You just said
no one, first of all, called her back into the church that he was using the gun at that time. She had given it to Halls to sit in the church. Mr. Halls then gave it to Mr. Baldwin, and that is the conclusion of the lead investigator. That was what Baldwin said, and that is what Ms. Gutierrez Reed said. So Halls hands it to him. No one calls her back in to let her know Baldwin is doing that blocking scene. She doesn't know that's happening. The medic said she did not hear anybody call that out, first team, over the channel. So that's not getting put out. So Baldwin's doing another audible like he did on this video that you just saw. He's going off script.
Well, that's
defeats
foreseeable.
Any idea that was foreseeable to Ms. Gutierrez Reed. If she doesn't know what's happening, she can't foresee it. That's a big part of the instruction. The other part I want to talk about foreseeability and where this matters is live rounds. Now, live rounds in this type of situation has not happened in Hollywood. In the 100 years of Hollywood, this has not happened in a situation like we saw in this case. No one on that set foresaw, knew, or thought that live rounds were going to be on that set. No one. You did not hear one witness in this case.
Are you ignoring
even Ms. Morrissey
that?
said there was no evidence that Hannah knew about live rounds coming on, or this was done. There's no evidence of that.
Wasn't.
Nobody thought live rounds were going to be on set. Mr. Sousa told the doctors he couldn't believe it. He argued with them because it was inconceivable that live rounds would appear. Because of that, When you read the jury instructions, there's a concept in the involuntary manslaughter of an element of willful disregard of the rights of another. That word willful, and I'm going to go over it soon, means purposeful. That you willfully do something, you purposely do something.
The gun.
What's impossible for the government to prove in this case?
The gun. This could have never happened. This would have never happened if she took the gun with her. Oh, well, I gave it to David Halls. Guess what? You're not supposed to give it to David Halls. What are you talking about? You think that's going to absolve you? Well, they can't prove who bought the bullets. The bullets weren't supposed to be there, but she was supposed to be there.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to talk about willful more in a moment when we get there. But it cannot be willful if Hannah does not know there's live rounds, and nobody did. So she did not do something willfully, knowing that Baldwin could foreseeably hurt somebody with this firearm, because she didn't know it was live. And let me give you an example. It's akin to a nurse, let's say in a hospital, who the pharmacy mislabels a drug. And let's say it comes to her and somebody's ordered it be administered to a patient. She then administers it, not knowing that it's a fatal drug of some other type. The pharmacy's mislabeled it. The patient passes.
They didn't mislabel it though.
Same situation as we have here, where the government would be saying the nurse committed involuntary manslaughter.
4 days ago. If you watching my stream,
because she did not know what happened. It's like a long time ago when the Tylenol capsules were laced with cyanide, way back in the 80s or somewhere around there. There was no prosecution of the pharmacies that didn't know about this, that were tainted by it. It's the same type of situation we have here with the nurse. Miss Gutierrez Reed did not know there were live rounds, and she was entitled to rely on production buying dummies and the boxes labeled dummies.
Crazy?
She's entitled to rely on
Am I
that.
crazy?
And that reliance is reasonable. So she cannot foresee a live round.
No, then what's the point of an armor?
What's the point of an
armor then, Mr.
You saw her first statement. She didn't have an attorney. She did waive her rights and answer her question. She had not been advised at that time. Ms. Hutchins had passed. And she came in a second time and answered all questions. The reason why I say that is she was cooperative. She was trying to assist in what this investigation, what they were investigating.
No, she wasn't, because she was in that line.
Corporal Hancock never fully investigated the source of the live rounds. And she told you that she focused on people on the set. So again, in ruling out reasonable doubt and where those live rounds came from, we have not done that in this case because there was never a full investigation as to the source of the live rounds. Let me give you an example. The state never called Joe Swanson. And it's kind of remarkable because Joe Swanson was the original source of where these came from. He's also the JS on all the boxes. So the idea that the person where it originated, you wouldn't call that person and get.
I'm not even going to be able to get to the poll because this guy is so ridiculous. I feel like I have to respond to things and I don't want to talk over him the whole time. We didn't check Joe Swanson, and he's the one that is the maker of the bullet. Your client also got up there and pulled bullets out of boxes, put them in fanny packs, put them in the back of her car, put it on top of the roof of her car, put it outside her house, put it everywhere, put it in the box, took it out the box. You just told us that the box didn't matter because people were taking things in and out of the box and in and out of the box. So what does it matter if you go to Joe Swanson and ask him what kind of bullets were in the box? You just told us. You just said it 10 minutes ago that people were taking them in and out of the boxes. So we're supposed to believe that they didn't put mixed rounds into it, just like how she loaded the other gun with the wrong size dummy when a dummy wasn't even needed? Y'all getting spicy, Bree, tonight, because what the hell is he talking about? What is he talking about? They didn't even ask Joe Swanson. You just told us that she was moving things in and out of the box, putting it in fanny packs, putting it in her pocket. You just told us that. So how are we going to go to the original manufacturer and try to figure out if he supplied the live bullets? It doesn't even add up. Does he believe what he's saying? And so I'm going to say the state's was better at this point because I didn't have to stop, not one time in hers. I've already stopped twice in his, and I've been talking over all of his points because he's ridiculous. I can't be here all night with Baldy, okay? He's pissing me off.
Some more information is interesting. But more than that, it leaves a huge hole in the origin of the live rounds. Let me tell you what else it did. Seth Kinney's fingerprints and DNA were never taken. Seth Kinney talked to Corporal Hancock 40 times or more. They supplied information back and forth. And he starts making you wonder about what's going on and why I'm called dishonest for raising the possibility that maybe Mr. Kinney was the source. Because he's pretty tight with law enforcement.
She's supposed to check.
Obviously. They don't do a prop search warrant until 6 days after the incident. and that was Corporal Hancock and the rest of the sheriffs. They don't search Mr. Kinney's business until over a month after. They never asked the FBI to check live rounds for fingerprints or DNA. And so we will not know if Mr. Kinney's fingerprints or anybody else's would have ever appeared on those live rounds on set because they didn't get that evidence. Bryce Ziegler, I want to tell you a little bit, remind you a little bit about his testimony, and that's Mr. Ziegler. He talked about Baldwin's revolver being single action. You have to cock it, and then every time you want to shoot it. He testified about breaking that firearm. They actually destroyed the firearm after testing that was approved by the sheriff.
This is like a legitimate PowerPoint.
He talked about that you can't determine a live round from a picture.
Basic
and that's the other point I think is important to consider when considering the picture analysis.
Definitely has nothing on Kimmy's
The Latin Print examiner, examined various things, but she did not examine anything Seth Kinney-wise. There's no analysis on the cartridges from the prop cart, and found 8 FBI employee prints.
Screenshotted the picture from a freaking YouTube video that he's not supposed to be watching.
Because that's only tested 11 rounds from Seth Kinney. Again, we know that he brought back 125 from a group that went to 1883. And I also want to remind you about 1883. Some of those were Starline brass rounds, and some of those he said had silver primers. So when we get to the set, the live rounds are Starline brass, and they have silver primers. It's a continuous chain that could have been traced from Del Reed all the way to Seth Kinney, all the way back to the set. But they did not do that thorough investigation, and that's reasonable doubt they have not ruled out.
No, it's not, because she put the bullets in the gun, and as the armorer, she's supposed to check.
This is another area of reasonable doubt.
That point.
Witnesses testified this set contained a dangerous mix of dummies. They were dangerous because it was impossible for the armorer and prop master to hear and rattle all of the dummies, especially under pressure, rushing, noise on the set. You saw there was a lot of wind that day on the lapel. There's people running around. There's, I think at one point somebody said 200 people. There's all kinds of things going on. And despite that, Mr. Haig indicated in a quiet office he could not hear one of the dummies when it's rattled. That's dangerous because when you're trying to do it quickly, when there's a lot of noise, it may be a dummy. It may not. You can't hear it rattle. Seth Kinney, again, mentioned in this case that he always rattle tested his rounds, and he made sure they're dummies. He told you all that. Well, the problem, but even the box that they say was Seth Kinney's and the rounds that came out of it, there was one round, if you remember, that was gunked, and it didn't shake. That round had to be sent to the FBI to be broken apart and to be checked to see if it was live. So if he truly is that thorough in shaking, he missed that round.
But did he put it into a gun?
Now the producers, they had oversight over the budget team. They didn't know where the funds were set aside for the armor. They were on location for filming, and they were fined the statutory maximum by OSHA for managerial safety violations. Again, OSHA found that the management team are the ones responsible. And yet we're here with Ms. Gutierrez Reed, the person on trial for the felony offenses. Sherilyn Schaefer was the medic on set. You recall she did not have chest seals. She, I think, was doing the best she could with the equipment that she had, but she didn't have the complete equipment to deal with a gunshot wound. She also indicated she never heard anyone call out use of a gun before the fatal shooting.
Trying to blame
Amy Mitchell, I touched on this earlier. The most important thing Ms. Mitchell said was that it was not in the script for Baldwin to point the firearm. That goes directly to the element when you read the jury instructions and you all go back in to deliberate. That goes to foreseeability and whether or not anybody can foresee the moments Mr. Baldwin pointing the gun, using it as a pointer.
Just told
he's up on the hill shooting at the cut, and then he's shooting,
goes off script.
Pointing the gun when he's not supposed to in scenes.
Tie your arguments together.
David Halls was the first assistant director, as you remember, and he was in charge of overall safety. Now he got a misdemeanor, 6 months unsupervised probation, even though he was in charge of overall set safety.
He should have took that.
He never raised any concerns, and in fact, I think he said Hannah did a great job as armor.
And he already got.
He indicated he did not hand the gun to Baldwin, but the sheriff contradicted this. So did Hannah, and so did Mr. Baldwin, and that was essentially Mr. Hall's testimony. Sarah Zachary, I remind you, she threw away rounds on set after the shooting, took items off the prop card. She worked for Seth Kinney, and she texted and called him right after the shooting. One of her texts, she indicated she had said she was talking to Alec Baldwin and trying to keep her facts straight. She mentioned that she had loaded firearms on set. She picked up ammunition from Kinney at PDQ. I'll remind you in the testimony that Sarah Zachary and Hannah Gutierrez Reed went to Kinney's place before production started, and he had given them ammunition, leathers, and firearms. So again, we don't know exactly what Mr. Kinney may have supplied to the set because it's not inventoried. It's not all that invoiced. I'll also remind you about Sarah Zachary when you're considering her credibility and her testimony. She had the text where she wanted Hannah to go to jail, and she's given complete immunity. Seth Kinney, again, I mentioned this. He supplied the leathers, guns, and ammo before arrest began. He had no inventory system. And we attached some pictures to the right that you can look at in the jury room about his place. It was an absolute mess.
It looked just like her car.
There was stored live ammo in the bathroom.
Learn from him.
And one of the things I think was important to remind you of is he actually called Joe Swanson and had a conversation with him. And after he gets off the call, his first words are shit, shit, shit. And so that's something as an investigator, you would think after he does that, maybe I should call Joe Swanson and see what's happening, see what that means. That reasonable doubt has not been ruled out. I went over this on a 1883 set, and he brought 125 rounds back.
Is everybody looking at the clock up there to the
Mr.
right?
Carpenter, I want to remind you, he was a state's expert armorer. One of the most important points he said was 2 is 1 and 1 is none. And here we didn't have a properly staffed armor component to the set. Luke Haig, he said the live rounds on set were reloads. He could not hear the dummy rattle in the quiet office, and he said Mr. Baldwin violated basic safety rules. Karen Kuhn, you may remember, was the photographer. She said the armor was checking guns before when she was present. And she also made a comment about Mr. Baldwin that on the day she was taking questions, I believe she said on the 21st, he told her to get out of his personal space and said something in a manner that kind of goes along with how he was on the set. Mr. Souza was kind about it. He said he had a strong personality, but you can see it in the videos, and you can see how Mr. Baldwin was acting. Rebecca Smith, I want to talk about the tampering. She said that she hadn't used cocaine in 31 years. She saw a baggie inside a baggie for approximately 5 seconds. She didn't know if it was cocaine or meth or something else. But she admitted at the end she was guessing. And we also know that the substance in the baggie was never tested. And so the only evidence you have of narcotics in this case is a guess. Now, Ms. Morrissey in her closing indicated that, well, of course we don't have the evidence. The whole thing is thrown away. But you have to prove first that it was evidence. So in a normal tampering case, when, let's say, a firearm's thrown away, and we know a firearm was used, and somebody throws a firearm away, we know that was a firearm. So we know that would be evidence in a case involving a shooting. Here, we have an unknown substance. Again, they have to rule out all of the reasonable doubt by that. It's not enough to say it's probably something under a criminal standard. It's probably cocaine in that bag because Ms. Smith says it is. If it even happened, we don't even know this happened. The government hasn't established that except through her testimony. We don't know if there was a bag. We don't know if this actually was passed. And that's their burden. Let's say it did happen, that you believe it did happen. It's not enough to say what was probably in that bag. They have the burden to rule it out beyond a reasonable doubt that it couldn't have been anything else. And she's already calling it in her testimony potentially multiple substances, cocaine, methamphetamine, or possibly something else. So she's not even certain about what it is. Without a test, without something presumptive to tell you on a test, there's no way of telling what was in that bag. It's not enough in a criminal case.
Also, they didn't.
OSHA, we talked about in detail.
Why are y'all not talking about that?
I just want to remind you the root cause they found, they attributed all the responsibility for safety issues to management. Mr. Elliott, he was defense expert investigator, got extensive law enforcement experience, if you recall, in APD and military. One of his big points was Mr. Baldwin was not segregated at the beginning, even though he was the known shooter. Hannah was segregated right away. Again, they zeroed in on her in the rush to have her identified. He indicated there was 20 or so key witnesses not identified and segregated. And the problem with that is they can get their stories together and they can change their stories. They can have their memories altered. We know this happened in this case because after the incident,
they can't change the fact
Mr.
that
Baldwin
Hannah's
is
the
talking to Sarah
armorer,
Zachary.
though. And she's the one that's supposed to be checking the gun.
Seth Kenny's talking to Sarah Zachary. Mr. Halls is talking to
other
Baldwin
than just
after.
saying she doesn't do her job,
We don't
they
have
can corroborate
all the
on
information you're talking
that.
about, but we do know they're recording. They're talking.
Loaded the gun.
The only one not in that group was Hannah. And again, this was the idea. We've got to circle the wagons, and we've got to pick out the person that's going to take the fall for everything that's happened here.
Then why is Alec Baldwin and David Hall charged too, if that's the case? Come on, guy.
Law enforcement failed to follow up on the origin of the live rounds
at this point,
and their delayed search warrants caused problems with missing evidence. PJ Pesh testified just this morning. He had said, like everybody else, he's never seen in 35 years an armor split duties with props. It's not possible for one person to keep track of so many firearms. And he indicated it's important to give the armor adequate time and resources, which OSHA said as well. She was not given that to do her job. I want to talk to you about the law that the judge instructed you on, and that is the law. What the judge told you about is what we have to follow in terms of evaluating this. The law presumes the defendant to be innocent. The burden is always on the state to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense, the kind of doubt that would make a reasonable person hesitate to act in the graver and more important affairs of life, a doubt based on reason and common sense. So what the government has to do is rule out every reasonable doubt you may have based on reason and common sense. Or in this country, we don't convict people. That's the standard. And again, I go back to where I started at the beginning. If they didn't rule out the reasonable doubt on Miss Zachary throwing away the rounds, that is always going to be there. Because their theory based on you can identify these pictures and we know exactly what was on the set and what remained on the set, and what we will never know that because some of them were thrown away. And we didn't get all of Seth Kenny's rounds. We're never going to know that. Other areas of reasonable doubt, I've gone over the top two, top three. The prop cart was tampered with. We know that right after the incident, another individual moved it. Now, Lieutenant Benavides said he had eyes on the entire time. But if you saw that video, you can make up your mind what you believe. Ladies and gentlemen, his camera appeared to be pointed right into the vehicle, and the individual getting the cart was way off in the other direction. He said he had his head turned, but you all can decide what you think about that. The prop cart, there was unquestionably items taken from it. We don't know exactly what those are. That is another area of reasonable doubt that the government has not ruled out. You've had witnesses say throughout the trial, you can't tell live ammo from a picture. And the reason is that the FBI said it has to be disassembled and you have to open it up because there's powder in it. If there's not powder in it, then it's not live. OSHA stated the root cause of all safety failures was management. OMI ruled this to be an accident, not a
He's
homicide.
gonna keep on going.
You heard
with
evidence
that
about the
one, huh?
esophageal
That's
intubation
what he's
was
gonna go
ineffective to
with?
provide oxygen to Halyna. This also was a situation in
You're
this
gonna
case where
blame
multiple
the
lawsuits have been
medic?
filed, and you can evaluate their testimony, those people who have filed lawsuits, with care and caution, because they've got an interest potentially in what's happening in this case by being involved in lawsuits. Involuntary manslaughter, you're going to have that instruction when you go back. That is the charge that Her Honor has read to you. She's given you the law on this. I want to focus you on a couple key points. The government has the burden to show each of these elements beyond a reasonable doubt. The elements are the numbered items. What that means is if you all have reasonable doubts on any of these elements, Hannah cannot be convicted. And I want to focus you in on element 3, that Hannah acted with a willful disregard. Again, you go back to willful disregard, the nurse example, and the idea that if somebody doesn't know, I mean, that could be the same thing with a nurse on trial for involuntary manslaughter, but if she doesn't know the drug was
Did y'all
mislabeled,
see that she
you cannot hold her
adequately
criminally
failed
accountable
to check
for something
bullet?
like that. It's the
Are
same
you
thing in this
skipping
case
over that
because
part
no one
of
knew there
the
were live
rule?
rounds. So she did not
She
act
doesn't have to
willfully.
know that
And
they're
anything
live
that happened that
rounds.
day,
She's supposed
in
to
loading the
check.
firearm, this was another day everybody thought on set.
Skip the whole
Loading the
first part of
firearms,
the
running to
rule.
different things, doing the duties. Nobody's calling her back in for the blocking scene. Mr. Baldwin's doing something on his own. Nobody in the wildest dreams thought there was a live round. And because of that, the next element is that Hannah Gutierrez Reed that caused the death. I submit to you that what caused her to pass was Mr. Baldwin going off script and pointing the weapon. Now, he didn't know there was a live round in there either. He didn't know. Again, he's in the same position that nobody knew there was ever going to be a live round on that set.
We're gonna go
But
over what
the only
rule
ultimate act
says.
is pointing of that weapon. Ms. Gutierrez wasn't in the church. She didn't point that weapon. She didn't pull it. Nobody called her back in. And because of that, those two elements, I submit to you, have not been proven on involuntary manslaughter. And they have to be. The government has to resolve all your reasonable doubts about that, or they don't. We cannot convict. Mental state and willful disregard, and that is going to be in your instructions. For you to find the defendant acted negligently in this case, you must find that the defendant acted with willful disregard. And so again, that's the terminology, is willful disregard.
And how did she have willful
You're also going to be
regard,
instructed,
sir?
the court instructed you, Her Honor, on negligent use of a firearm. And that is a lesser included offense of the involuntary manslaughter. So when you go back and deliberate, you will have this in front of you as well, whether Ms. Gutierrez Reed endangered the safety of another by handling or using a firearm in a negligent manner. And again, the language is acted with willful disregard. That's what has to be proven under that charge for you to resolve all of your reasonable doubts. Tampering with evidence, I think this is a real stretch, and it is a real stretch. And when you talk about guessing,
I agree with him
this
on.
one they have to prove the defendant hid a bag of cocaine. Well, the only witness they have to it said it was either cocaine or meth or something else. So just by the testimony alone, the beginning of that, there's no way of knowing it was a bag of cocaine. It's just impossible. There has to be reasonable doubt on that by the government's own witness. Their only witness. No law enforcement testing. There's nobody else. This is
I don't
absolutely
agree with the
unproven in this
method
case.
that he's asserting.
And you don't even have to get to
I
element
agree
2 because
that
element 1
tampering
is
with
not even close to having been proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Proximate cause, it's a legal term, but it's something the government has to prove as well. And this is where you get into that the passing was a foreseeable result of Hannah Gutierrez's act. The act was a significant cause of the death, and the language I want to focus you in on, in a natural and continuous chain of events uninterrupted by an outside event. What these mean, and these are the legal terminology, what it means is that what Hannah Gutierrez did had to be a foreseeable result, but again, that caused her death. But again, without her knowing that there was a live round, that's impossible to meet that standard. She did not have that knowledge, and there's no witness that came in here in this courtroom in 2 weeks to say she had that knowledge. Without it, nothing she did. She has that willful disregard because she just doesn't know. Now, was there an outside event?
You just said
as
she
well?
has
There was an
willful
outside event. There's 2
disregard.
outside events. Whoever put the
You
live round on
just
set,
said
and then
she
Mr.
has
Baldwin
willful
going off
disregard.
script and doing what he did. Those are
Come
outside
on.
events outside of Ms. Gutierrez Reed's
Proving
control.
your
That
case
she didn't know was going to
against
happen.
you.
That breaks any idea, and there's reasonable doubt that she had anything to do ultimately with Halyna Hutchins' death.
I don't think he's smart.
Ms. Gutierrez Reed was not a
And that's
significant
the
cause
nicest way I
as a
can
result
say it.
of her death because of the reasons I've mentioned to you. Another instruction Her Honor gave you is that negligence of a third person. Again, I'm going to highlight the language. If it breaks the foreseeable chain of events. Again,
Did
the
it
foreseeable
break
chain
it?
of events on
No.
that set is you
We're
have
gonna
dummy
talk
rounds, you
about
have
it.
blank rounds, and then you have an orderly progression with how those are being used. Here, we had a completely unforeseeable live round, 6 live
He
rounds
didn't
that were on set.
check
Nobody
the
could foresee.
rounds.
And then we had Mr.
didn't
Baldwin's
check
action
it.
in the end. Those were both unforeseeable to Ms. Gutierrez Reed.
You can't use your omission to say, "Oh,
The
I
judge
didn't
instructed you
know,"
on,
when
you all
your
are the sole
job is
judge of the
literally
facts.
to check.
You
Otherwise,
all are
why do we
deciding the
need an
facts, ladies and
armorer?
gentlemen.
Why
And your
would we
verdict
need
should
an
not be
armorer
based on
if her job
speculation,
is not to
guess, or
check?
conjecture. It goes back to the tampering charge. It goes back to some of the other aspects the government has told you. In this country, we can't decide and convict people on guesses. And that's a lot of what they've asked you to do in several areas. To guess, to assume, to speculate. It's not sufficient to convict people in this country to guess. It's not. And that's what they brought you and they've asked you to do on the tampering and other aspects of their charges. And that's not sufficient. Ladies and gentlemen, Hannah is not guilty on all the counts because of the law that Her Honor has given you. When you apply that law and you apply the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, she cannot anticipate what Baldwin would do. It was not in the script. It was not
You
foreseeable.
yourself said
Management
that
was responsible for safety
because
failures and
Baldwin
not
does what he
Hannah.
wants.
There's zero evidence of cocaine. There's no testing. And again, I go back to the idea that Hannah is a scapegoat for all the management failures. They do hope she gets convicted. So they're all exonerated. They can move forward. They can finish that movie like Mr. Sousa said they did.
No,
Make their
other
money.
people can still get convicted.
But as he also
too.
told you, the buck always
What are you
stops with
talking
production.
about?
And there's responsibility. In any organization, it goes from the top down. And that's where the responsibility lies in this case. That's what OSHA said.
Hannah is the intervening
also the truth.
cause, is what
And
you're
the
not
truth is important.
recognizing.
Because justice for Halyna does not mean injustice for Hannah. Does not mean injustice for Hannah. It does not mean they get to steamroll her and they get to come in and spin their version of facts and they get to call it truth.
You never
'Cause that's not
said
true.
that Hannah's not the one that loaded the gun.
Truth is bringing you,
Did she load the
ladies and
gun?
gentlemen, everything they can.
Tell us she didn't load the gun.
Justice
Then I would believe you.
is bringing you everything they can. Justice is not mocking theories that could come true. That might have been the case. Justice is not laughing in court during some of our exchanges. And you can evaluate that as to their credibility, whether that was professional, whether if she didn't take court seriously, did she take the investigation seriously? I submit she did not. And so they can't come in here with a straight face and mock us and criticize us and tell you they have given you enough to convict her behind a reasonable doubt, because they haven't.
Look at the
you.
prosecutor's face. We're not rolling her eyes and taking off her jacket. Let me serve you up something, buddy. Let me serve you up
State's reply.
something, okay? The way she took off that jacket was like, all right, bet. She's like, all right, bet. Okay. I want to wait. So is hers going to start right here too? Let me double check. I don't think so. Aren't they going to go on a break? I think they're going to go on a break, right? Kimmy, before we get into her, I want to get the comments and then get into what she has to say. But I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to go back to 220. Let's see where we're at. 220. Now, the PowerPoint, whoever said it was very lackluster, I agree with you. Okay, so we're gonna pause before homeboy starts zooming in so that we can't see everything that is on the screen. We're gonna actually look at it and break it down. And let's figure out if we feel like Mr. Baldy is being truthful with us. I don't think he was. He skimmed right off of step 1. He skimmed right past it. So we have involuntary manslaughter. We're looking at theory 1 right now, which is what she was convicted of. Okay. For you to find the defendant guilty of involuntary manslaughter, the state must prove to your satisfaction, but beyond a reasonable doubt, each of the following elements of the crime. Mr. Baldy, in my opinion, misstated what we have to prove, or what the state has to prove. Hannah Gutierrez Reed endangered the safety of another by handling or using a firearm in a negligent manner, or that she loaded live ammunition into a firearm intended to contain only inert ammunition. Now, do you see intended anywhere in that first 3 lines? Yes, I do. Where it's intended. Firearm is only intended to contain inert ammunition. It does not say that she intended to load live ammunition. It does not say that she knew it was live ammunition. All it requires is that she actually loaded live ammunition into the gun. Her intent regarding loading the live ammunition is irrelevant. So his whole closing argument is irrelevant. Okay, let's not even go to the second because it's either or, right? She loaded live ammunition. Check. He never said that she didn't load the gun. You probably could have won if you said Hannah didn't load the gun. It was actually Sarah Zachary that loaded the gun. That would have been a good argument. Not, oh, Sarah Zachary threw away bullets that were not even in the gun at the time of the shooting, that were in another gun. Could it have proved maybe they set her up? Sure. But would it then result? That could potentially then absolve Hannah because she has a superseding, intervening cause. But if Hannah's the one that loaded that gun, she was supposed to check those bullets, even if Sarah handed them to her. If Sarah actually loaded the gun, that would be a superseding, intervening cause. Same thing if David Hawes actually loaded the gun. That would have been a superseding, intervening cause. Okay, so we already said she loaded the live ammunition. Her intent, her knowledge of whether it is live is not a part of this rule. Nothing says that. And we'll go on, but nothing says that. It's first paragraph. The other option, she endangered the safety of another by she handled the gun. Doesn't matter who she passed it off to after. She handled it. She did the safety check with David Hawes, right? She said that she loaded the gun before lunch, right? She said that she didn't check the gun after lunch because she had already checked it before lunch, right? She didn't say someone else went and got the guns out of the safe for me for this particular scene. She went and got the gun. Everyone got on the bus to go eat lunch. Are you saying that someone went into the safe during lunch and changed all the bullets? And even if so, maybe you should have checked the gun after lunch just to make sure that you did your job right earlier because all the chaos that was going on, right? They were already late in starting off. So not only did she handle a gun that endangered the safety of another, she also loaded live ammunition into a firearm. Her intent, knowledge of whether it was a live round is irrelevant to this rule. And or Hannah Gutierrez failed to perform an adequate safety check of ammunition she loaded into the firearm. So there are 4 different options of how she could qualify under the first prong of this test. She qualified for at least 3 out of the 4 ways. And we can probably say she also used the firearm because she loaded it and then she handed it off and gave it to the actor that she was supposed to. But I would say maybe the using is more Alec actually pulling the trigger. So let's say she doesn't qualify for that. There's 4 different options. She qualifies for 75% of the options of the first prong. His constant statement that, oh, she didn't know it was live is irrelevant. The whole purpose of her being on the set is to check and make sure that live rounds did not make it on. We had the expert armor come on and say, oh yeah, I found a live round on one of my sets before, but I stopped it because I checked it as the armor. That's literally your entire job. Let's move on to the second prong. Hannah Gutierrez Reed should have known of the danger involved by her actions in negligently handling or using the firearm. It's the fact, remember, she qualifies for 3 parts of it. She didn't check the rounds. She didn't shake the rounds. She did a spin when she showed David Hall. She should have known she's the armorer. What's the point of you being there? Let's be for real. What's the point of you being there if not to check the rounds? Okay. Hannah Gutierrez acted with willful disregard. Baldy said she acted with willful disregard. Straight up said it in his closing argument. But let's say she didn't. She didn't check the bullets. He's saying, oh, well, she didn't intentionally put those in there because she didn't intentionally know that they were live rounds. Yeah, but she also didn't check. Oh, and omission is also qualifies as negligent. You're supposed to check. Okay. Hannah Gutierrez Reed's act caused the death of Halyna Hutchins. She didn't pull the trigger. She didn't point the gun. Sure. But she handed the gun to someone she wasn't supposed to hand the gun to. She walked out of the room because she thought they were not handing the gun to Alec yet. If she was walking out of the room, that gun should have walked out of the room with her. If they were ready, they can give him a plastic gun. Her own attorney said, look at Alec. He went off script right here. So it was foreseeable that he would go off script. And then he turns around and say, she had no idea that Alec would go off script. You literally just told us that Alec goes off script. So which one do you want us to believe? I don't think that Alec pulling the hammer and pulling the trigger was an intervening cause. You hand someone a loaded gun, you are responsible. Is Alec also responsible? I believe so. I believe Alec is also responsible, but I don't think he's a superseding cause. That is why when you have kids, you lock up your gun, right? You don't just load your gun and leave it sitting on the bed. If your 2-year-old then grabs the gun and shoots your wife, you're the husband, the baby shoots the wife, you know who's going to be held responsible? Dad, you're responsible. Why would you load a gun and put it on the bed? Oh, well, how was I supposed to know my 2-year-old knew how to use the gun? How is I supposed to know a 2-year-old know how to use a gun? Is wild. But that's basically what she's trying to argue. Dad is still going to be responsible. That's not a superseding intervening cause. You've known Alec to go off script. You've left the room while Alec is supposed to have a gun. If you've known him to go off script, Alec should have been practicing with a plastic gun at that point whenever you were not in the room. You should not leave the gun in the room without you anyway. So I'm not even going to go there. Lastly, this happened in New Mexico on or about the 21st day of October. That's easy. So he said that we haven't proved 2 of the prongs. Which were the 2 prongs that we didn't prove? He said it didn't cause the death. I disagree with that. I don't think that there was an intervening cause. I don't. Now, if she would have loaded the gun, handed it to David Hall, and then when David Hall went out, he said, I don't like her dummies, let me put my dummies in. That is a superseding cause. Not handing the gun to an actor that is supposed to be using the gun, and it's a pew, pew, pow, pow Western movie. That's not a superseding cause. Is it a cause? Is it foreseeable? It's foreseeable that if you put a live round in a gun, if you pull the trigger, although he's not supposed to be pulling the trigger, sure. But if you pull the trigger, it's going to go off. You can't just take it off. Is Hannah liable? Yes. Is Alec also liable? Yes. Is production liable? Yes. If Seth Kinney put the live rounds on the set, could he be liable? Yes. Does it absolve Hannah from being liable? No. I know he was trying to go around it because he's the defense attorney. I would have never took this case. This is a horrible case. You're so far going around. Oh, yeah, well, my client loaded the gun, but all these people, they should be to blame instead. No, your client's literal job was to check the ammunition. I don't have time for that. Sorry. I just had to break that down for y'all because that really pissed me off. And then let's play it. He freaking zooms in. He zooms in.
If you all have reasonable doubts on any of these elements, Hannah cannot be convicted. And I want to focus you in on element 3, that Hannah acted with a willful disregard. Again, you go back to willful disregard, the nurse example, and the idea that if somebody doesn't know, I mean, that could be the same thing with a nurse on trial for involuntary manslaughter. But if she doesn't know the drug was mislabeled, you cannot hold.
It's very shady. It's giving shady for sure. There we go. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. I had to break that part down, but I did see that we did hit our like goal for the night. Shout out to the chat. We are at 51 likes with 22 people watching live. So shout out to y'all for getting us to our like goal for the stream. Actually, we surpassed it. Super excited. Thank you. Shout out to the Bree Hive. Let's go ahead and jump in the chat. I know I kind of went on a rampage there. Yes, it's spicy brie tonight, Jazzy G. Yeah, we are spicy tonight. Appreciate it. But yeah, they absolutely, that really pissed me off. Like, he wanted to focus on things that were so irrelevant. Yeah, all of these people could have been contributing factors, but to me, Hannah is a superseding factor. That is what it is. Let's go. I did see we had a super chat from Law and Lumber. Thank you so much. We have about as angry as I've seen Bree, and I'm here for it. Want to jump on to tomorrow night for Friday Night Frenzy. It's been too long. Yeah, I should be available. I will let you know. I know I'm not normally on Twitter, but I'll let you know on Twitter if I'm going to be available. But as of now, I should be. So, and thank you again for the super chat. Rob is also a moderator of the channel and supporting with the super chats. We definitely appreciate it. And I'll let you know if I can go on to Friday Night Frenzy. I know it's been a long time. Are we talking about this case? Are y'all talking about this case tomorrow? Let me know. Okay, let's get Bossy the Bee to bring us over to the chat. Bring us over to the chat. I don't know if I cut myself off there. Let's see what the chat has to say. Just Me MD says, even if the live round came from her dad, she was still ultimately responsible for armor safety. Yes. Yes, exactly. I don't get what the defense is trying to argue. I let the state go by. I didn't have to stop her. She was also speaking slower, but I didn't have to stop hers. I had to rant multiple times on him. I think, like I said, he's not smart, to say it the nicest way. Blunt Doc 02, I think I'm saying that right, says the guy in court pointed the gun at the judge, LOL. The gun expert. I don't know if I remember seeing that, but I was also doing a lot of listening. Fail. Yeah, that would be a fail. I was doing a lot of listening and not watching because I had to drive and do all those things. Kimmy Locker says to Blunt Doc 02, yeah, there's a reason the defense didn't bother referencing his testimony in closing. Kimmy told me to watch that guy. I thought you meant the original, the prosecutor's gun expert. I was like, I don't remember him doing that. I do remember him like showing the safety and what to do with the gun. But yeah, no, I have to go back and watch that one. Gabrielle George says, I think I would have been better if she used more of Hannah's interview quotes. Those were darning. You guys don't know. I try not to cuss that much. Yeah, no, I agree with you. She actually just used the transcript instead of what was actually said. But the things that she did pull out the transcript, I definitely recognize. Like, I could picture that part of the video when she pulled those transcripts. Just Me MD says, what damage would her dad suffer? If even he gave the rounds to her, it may show that he used mixed rounds on set. He was the armorer. Or she learned everything from her dad. Yeah, so it could potentially put him in he could potentially be liable because he basically supplied the live rounds to the set. Then he would have to testify, well, I didn't even know she took the live rounds, right? And then he's like snitching on his daughter. But potentially if he's supplying the live rounds are not supposed to be on this set. He could then be in trouble for supplying the live rounds. Would that then absolve Hannah? No. And if she turned down a plea deal saying, okay, if you take this plea deal, you have to tell us where the live rounds came from. And if they really did come from Seth Kenney, why would she not snitch on Seth Kenney? I can get the reason why is because it probably came from her dad. She doesn't want to snitch on her dad, but I would snitch on Seth Kenney, right? Blunt said, I'm just going to say Blunt. Oh, is it Blunt Doctor? I'm just going to say Blunt. Yeah, I think the live rounds came from her dad by mistake. I think so too. I do. And maybe Seth Kenney had some play in it too, because apparently they were doing the shooting together. So they're all probably guilty. Blunt says there was only 30 rounds. She really could have checked them. They had a lot of other boxes there too, but it seemed like she was mainly pulling from her boxes. Y23 says Hannah was responsible for every gun. Yes, I completely agree with that. Jazzy G says, I think he makes some good points, but it falls short and the facts are not on her side. I agree with that. I don't agree with him making good points. The only good point that he made was that the evidence regarding the gun charge was a stretch. Everything else, I don't agree with him. I do agree that a lot of the a lot of the avenues were not researched as much. They didn't go after as many things that they could have gone after to get more people held responsible. But I don't think missing those part of the investigation would then absolve Hannah, if that makes sense. Blunt says the blonde lady had a better closing statement. I agree. So far, she has a reply that we still have to get to, but so far, I didn't have to stop her. Him, infuriating. Now, let me be quiet, trying to use big words. He made me mad, okay? Just Me MD says she didn't take the deal, and like she gambled the safety on set, she took a gamble by taking this trial. And that is always when you are going to the trial. Anytime you go to trial, it's a gamble. Even in my line of practice in family law, going to trial is a gamble. You might have a judge that just doesn't like you that day. I mean, they can't just not like you that day, but doesn't like the way that you're presenting stuff. I think a big part of why Hannah lost is because they do not like Baldy. I don't like Baldy, but yeah. Luckily, I'm not on the jury, right? Blunt says, movie set has more money for better lawyers. Agreed. I think that the people who either didn't get charged or that took the plea deal, I mean, I'm pretty sure Dave Halls would have been ready to snitch, okay? If he knew where the live rounds came from, he would have snitched. Hannah is playing games. You know where the live rounds came from or where you would think that they came from. You could have listed all of them. You could have listed Seth Kenny. You could have listed your daddy. You could have listed all of these people. And guess what? You wouldn't be sitting in this chair. You wouldn't be sitting in the chair. But you decided to be a thug and not want to snitch. You wanted to use that part of the street code, but you wanted to talk to the police without a lawyer. Okay, girl. Just Me MD says the bug did not stop with production. It stopped with her. Exactly. Otherwise, why hire an armorer? You don't need an armorer if production is supposed to oversee whether there's live rounds. That's why they hire you. They hire specific people to do specific jobs. And that was your job, especially that day. I can understand if she was actually doing props that day. That probably would have helped her a little bit more. I don't think it would have absolved her, but it probably would have helped a little bit more. Y23 says, Hannah had the power as the chief safety officer. They're trying to blame it all on Dave Halls, but you can blame it on Dave Halls all you want to. He already took his charge. He took his charge to the chin. Like, what else do you want him to do? He already admitted that he was negligent. She's the one admitted I'm not negligent. It's everyone else around me. And how could you blame me because I'm only 24, which I'm happy that Baldy did not say that in his closing. I'm very happy he didn't say that. Gabrielle George says he doesn't see holes in his argument, phrasing she the armorer when things go wrong. Yeah. When it goes wrong with guns, yeah. You are to blame. I'm sorry. Maybe you're not to blame on the cowboy cigarettes not being rolled right, but you are to blame if you give a gun to an actor that you know goes off script. Your attorney pointed out that he goes off script in his closing arguments and then said it wasn't foreseeable. Then why did you show us? I probably would have forgot that fact if you had not shown us that Alec Baldwin goes off script. Alec Baldwin should not have had to been able to hold a real gun, because he's doing whatever the heck he wants, okay? All of those people, along with the child, they should have had the little CGI explosions just like the kid did, okay? They all should have. Gabrielle says the fact that Alec went off script with guns prior makes it foreseeable, not less. Yes. Thank you. The defense shot himself in the foot with that one. Just Me MD says there were multiple failures on every level. Definitely agree. However, she's the one responsible for gun safety. Aren't actors allowed to go off script in some cases to make it somewhat catered to their role? Yeah, basically. What did they say? A lot of the scenes what was the movie Joker? Was just him kind of willy-nilly, and that movie was good, right? So yeah, I don't think, again, I just don't think it's a superseding cause. But he helped the state prove foreseeability though. He did help the state prove that. Gabrielle says, no one called her back in the church, but did anyone tell her to leave? Please, preach in the church, okay? You were not supposed to leave. Why would you leave? You're not supposed to leave the gun without you there, but as evidence, by your previous conduct. Let's say they only showed us one day and every other day she was pristine and good at her job. Then why on this day would she leave a gun in the church? I think it supports the fact that she's not doing her job safely. Y23 says the armorer is not supposed to leave when the gun is in place. Yes, exactly. Agreed. Y23 says the armorer stays with the gun always. Agreed. And there was so much testimony that stuck that point. But for whatever reason, it just kept sliding right off of Baldy's head. Sliding right off. It slid right off his head. Get it together, Bree. You cannot be insulting this man. Gabrielle says there's always a chance that safety could be compromised, and that's what I'm there to prevent. Hannah in the police interview. Exactly. You want to be a prosecutor, Gabrielle? Like, because you're on it. You should be a prosecutor at this point. You are on it, pulling the quotes. Whitney R says, in his analogy, Hannah isn't the nurse. She is the pharmacist who mislabeled the meds. Yes, exactly. I was like, didn't I just give this example? I said 4 days ago, but I think it was last week. If it's labeled wrong, sure. Then it would be Johnson & Johnson's fault. Remember, we talked about this. But if you're just, filling up syringes yourself, you become the problem. Come on. Or if you check and you see that, oh, this is expired medicine, and you still give it to the person, you're the problem. She's the problem. Just Me MD says the Tylenol case was over-the-counter meds being tampered with, not those dispensed by pharmacists. Like I said, he tries to grasp onto the hair on his head. That's what I've learned about him. He's trying to grasp and put that hair on his head into a ponytail. Help him put it into a ponytail. That is what he's doing with the facts on this case. He's trying to gather them all up and put it in a ponytail. And we can see he does not have enough for a ponytail, okay? He does not have enough. Small says, friendly reminder, hit the like button if you haven't already. Yes, thank you very much for the reminder, Smalls. And also how to become an official member. Smalls dropped it in the chat around 9:04. So if you do want to become a member of the channel, please do. It's $5 a month. It supports the channel. And on a monthly basis, we do a live members live stream, which I am going to do a poll about when you guys want to do it. I kind of have a lot going on this month. Had a lot going on a lot last month too. But we are going to do a members live stream. I thought about making this stream a members live stream just in case we couldn't get to it on the weekend. So let me know if y'all prefer Sundays or Saturdays for the members live streams. Just Me MD says, oh, and for the record, bald is sexy. I don't have a problem with bald people. It's just an easy target. It makes it an easy target because he's so shiny. Look at the shine on that head reflecting light off of it. Singing Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean. Oh, okay, back to being serious, right? No, I have no problem with bald people. So if anyone is in the chat and you're bald and you're feeling, attacked, it's not the fact that you're bald. It's the fact that it's him, okay? It's him. Israel says, the producers really look young. Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Gabrielle says, although he did highlight how Corporal Hancock was hiding behind her hair during cross-examination, I'm gonna get to the second part of your part. I don't think it's like super unusual to prep with your witness, or at least let them know what you're going to be asking them about. He could have also asked her questions as well before the trial, but the way she answered did make it seem like she did that the prosecutor told her what to say. So I see what he was getting at. He was just trying to prove bias and trying to prove that people were lying, trying to basically impeach them on closing argument rather than actually impeach them during the case. Just Me MD says, no matter how he words it or tries to make someone else more accountable than her, she's still the one responsible for gun safety. I agree. And I think that's why he should have just not did a closing, because it was really pissing me off. No matter how you try to word it, she, to me, is still a superseding intervening cause. Production's supposed to not rush the set. Okay, production's rushing the set, but you're the armorer. Slow it down. Slow it down. Or walk away. Let somebody else do it. Let somebody else do it. I'm not doing that. That's what she should have did. Gabrielle says, Hannah describes herself as having a strong personality. That's yes. I noticed that too. In the police interview, best not to remind the jury of that if you're Bowles. Exactly. She does. And I'm so happy he stopped saying she's 24 and a little girl, blah, blah, blah. No, she took the job. Gabrielle George says, I also wish Maura seemed would point out twice is once is none was about how many times you check the gun, not how many armorers you have. Makes sense. I didn't catch that. Good call, Gabrielle. Good call. And I don't know if she does because this is a live react for me. Blunt Doctor, I want to say Blunt Doctor still. Do you guys think the white powder was coke? I mean, it could have been coke, it could have been meth, but I mean, either way, it doesn't help her case. I don't know what it was. I don't know. Kimmy Lockett says to Blunt, I think it was, but I don't think there was nearly enough evidence to charge her with evidence tampering for it. Yeah, I agree with that. They didn't test her for being high. So even if she did coke right after the shooting, that wouldn't make her guilty, you know? YT3 says, I trust the recovering lady. She knows her drugs. Yeah, didn't she say she did it for 31 years? Which I'm also like, well, why is she friends with Hannah, the young little girl that's 24? But either way, I see what you're saying. Gabrielle George says, justice for Halyna does not mean injustice for Hannah was pretty good line, though. That was a good line. It was a good line. He probably uses it in a lot of trials, but his facts were not facting, in my opinion. Again, thank you again, Law and Lumber, for the super chat. Definitely appreciate it. Law and Lumber says, I had an awesome day in court. Also got tomorrow's depots continued for 2 weeks and forced settlement of 3-day trial scheduled for next week. I'm loving this week. Good for you. I had a person say that he's sick with I can't even. I got a hearing continued because the person was sick. I had a judge not wanting to make decisions and continued our hearing out. And then I had another judge basically set us for trial because we didn't agree. But I'm glad that your week is going well. I have no hearings or anything next week, and I'm probably taking most of the week off. So that's good. Gabrielle George says, would it have been a better strategy to focus on differentiating between involuntary manslaughter versus the lesser included charge? No, it would have still been guilty. She would have still been guilty. So it doesn't really make sense to sparse it out. Could it affect her sentencing? Maybe if they would have got the lesser charge, if anything, but they didn't really focus on that. Just Me MD says, question, so were charges brought back because of social pressures re gun safety and gun control? Part of me feel like if there was not an issue with gun control or safety, they would have called it an accident, and they did call it an accident. They did call it an accident initially. I think it's because he's such a famous actor. People wanted to kind of make an example out of it, but I honestly don't know why the charges were brought back again. Kimmy Locker says, I don't think he's smart. Yeah, no, seriously, that's the nicest way I can say it. But also he has bad facts. So, I mean, I can't be that mean to him. Gabrielle George says, Hannah laughed during her interview. She was having a ball during her interview, laughing it up, chatting it up. I think she's like talking about horses at some point. She was having a great time, an absolute great time. Law and Lumber says, Bowles equals Baldy. Yeah, Brie, I see this trial the same way. Yeah. He is Baldy. Yes, that is. We call him Baldy over here. We don't call him Bowles, okay? Gabrielle George says the theory that Hannah's coworkers hated her so much that they were willing to kill someone. That is insane. To prove their point is bold, and they didn't support it with evidence. Exactly. That is insane. They want her fired so much that they are willing to kill their imagery director. Or maybe they thought Alec wouldn't point it at her directly. He would just point it right past her head. Has Alec been following the rules at all during this movie? No. So why would you think he will follow it now? But yeah, no, that's a wild claim. Upside Down says her attorney set the prosecutor up for a kill throughout the trial. I think so. And they didn't really allow for, and I don't know if this is like a state by state or a court by court thing, but they didn't allow a lot of redirect and recross. They only did direct, direct, cross, and then redirect. And normally you can just go back and forth, I guess, depending on the court. Go back and forth until you finish what you're doing. So that was interesting to me. Upside Down, another moderator of the channel, saying, you don't make a non-union kid armorer with only one other film under their belt. I don't care who her father is. Crazy part is, Upside Down, is that the Sarah Zachary was also an armorer and had never touched a gun before. So is the movie industry the best at selecting armorers? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no on that. Long Lumber says, by the way, she's so in the zone, she hasn't seen chat for a solid few minutes, and I couldn't be happier. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was going in on that part. I'm sorry, that really pissed me off. Just Me MD says, yes, reminds me of the mother that was charged when her 6-year-old shot his teacher. She got 2 years looking at a 5-year charge, looking at 5 charge with felony child neglect. Exactly. You are still responsible. You can't hand a gun to a 2-year-old. Let's say you even hand the gun to the 2-year-old and he pulls the trigger and you go, I didn't know my 2-year-old knew how to pull a trigger. Okay, but you still gave him the gun. Upside Down says training and actually working on set is like night and day. Yes, that's true. And watching your dad do his job is different than you actually doing it. 81CVB41 says preach green things. Upside Down says they all are responsible. I agree 100%. Jesse G Spicy Bree, love it. Yeah, I was spicy for a second. AT1 says Mr. Gun Expert short story began before his conception. I'm gonna have to go back and watch them. Kimmy Locker says the state's gun expert showed what to do with guns. The defense's gun expert showed what not to do with the guns. It was wild. Yeah, probably not the best strategy when his client was doing what not to do with guns. Upside Down said their gun expert doing his muzzle dance was pathetic. I gotta go watch. I have to go watch now. What day is he on? Jazzy G says, I didn't care for the prosecutor either. She was better than the defense, in my opinion. Not a Tat says the prosecutor kicked butt and the defense attorney was butt. That was a good one. That was a good one for sure. Upside Down says, yes, Seth shipping the inventory from 1883. From 1883 that included live rounds was irresponsible, too lazy to clean it out and just send what they asked for. She may have found them and pulled them. I don't know. She's still supposed to check every time she loads the gun. I think that's what's kind of going over the people that are defending Hannah's head. Now, them pointing out that Seth Kinney's office was a mess and ignoring the fact that Hannah Gutierrez Reed's cart was a mess. Like, apparently she learned from the person that was insuring her. That's what I think. Upside Down says Sarah and Nicole should not have been loading guns at all. I agree with that. But it was Hannah's job to not let them load the guns. Just Me MD says, question, was the other producer that took the deal end up with a felony as well? No, he had a misdemeanor. If you're talking about David Halls, they charged him with a misdemeanor. With misdemeanor neglect something. I can't remember exactly what it was. But he does not have a felony. Kimmy Locker said, just Me MD. David Halls was the first, okay, yeah, first assistant director and safety coordinator, but I don't think he was a producer. He pled to a misdemeanor negligent use of firearms. Kimmy, always with the facts. Thank you for sure. Upside Down says, I don't know what that stands for. Walking off set for the lack of safety, crew comfort, and organization should have been enough to shut down set, at least for the day, right? Instead of trying to rush it, it should have at least be shut down for the day. At least 2 days, maybe. Winnie R says, of all the things to say, what that baggie could have been, he went with meth. Like it was better. You could have said sugar. You could have said salt. You could have said anything. Powdered sugar. But you like, could it have been meth? It could have been meth, but how does that make it better, sir? Like, what? Like I would have said protein powder or anything else. Right? It could have been like some type of power booster or something. I don't know. Not meth. I guess that's a form of power booster, right? Winnie R says the fact that they were only framing the shot and not filming, she shouldn't have handed him the gun. Thank you, Whitney R. He could have had a pencil. He could have had something else. He did not need the gun. He likes his tools. He likes his tools. Okay, you know he likes his tools. So don't leave the room. Come on now. Upside Down says to Winnie R. Hutchins was setting up the scene and wanted the prop in the visual. I thought they said they didn't want it. Winnie R says the lesser included charge was a misdemeanor, though. No, I don't think so. I think it was still a felony because it was still involuntary manslaughter, if I'm not mistaken. Kimmy, let me know if I'm wrong. Tat says the film moon industry seems short-staffed like everywhere else, and they will take whatever they can get. It's sad, and they shouldn't. And hopefully they don't do it anymore. Just Me MD says, at the mother of the 6-year-old, she didn't give it to him. She didn't secure it, and he took it to school. She didn't even know the gun was gone. Either way, she's still liable. That's why you have to lock it up. I said that earlier. But yeah, same. I don't think that she gave it to them. I'm sorry if I misspoke that. But yeah, she's still responsible for locking it up, right? Upside Down says Sarah was being trained by Seth. She wasn't an armorer. She was an armorer on a different movie set. She testified to that she was also insured by Seth, and she did one movie where she was the armorer, where they didn't have as many armorer days, but she had never touched a gun before. That stuck in my head. So I remember that. Because I was like, that's wild. Kimmy Lockett says she worked as an armorer on at least one other movie. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let me go in the back chat to say, what was I mistaken by? Oh, okay. So it was a misdemeanor. So never mind. I guess I was wrong. Kimmy, let me know in the back. Okay, makes sense. Thank you, Kimmy. It was a misdemeanor. I don't know why I thought it was still a felony, but whatever. We still have to finish the reply. Is the reply necessary? Do I need to finish that, or should we just go straight to the guilty verdict? Let me know in the chat if you guys want to hear the reply, or if you just want me to go to the guilty verdict. Let me know which one do you prefer. Okay, so we also had a poll. If you haven't voted, we're at 24 votes exactly again. So it seems like most people voted. So we'll go ahead. Do you find the defense closing argument compelling? We got 17% said yes, it was compelling. 71% says no, it wasn't compelling, and 12% said neutral. I obviously didn't find it compelling, hence why I was yelling at him the entire time. Hence why I was yelling at him the entire time. So, okay. I'm seeing in the chat that we should do the reply. The reply was epic. So I think we are going to go ahead and do it. Okay. I will. Kimmy pulled up something else for us. So let me actually go ahead and play that for y'all. She pulled up the gun experts acting some nonsense, I'm guessing. I'm not even ready for what this is, Kimmy. Please. please don't let it be too ridiculous. Okay, let's see. Share the screen. Okay, I'm going to not that one, but this one. Okay, so we're gonna share it. Okay, are y'all ready? This is the defense's gun expert. Let me go ahead and have Bossy switch us over. All right, defense's gun expert. Let's see what he has to say.
Revolver.
Why is he holding? Why is he holding it in the air like that? I'm just trying to let it load a little bit.
Everybody's nervous.
Okay.
But a sister, it is made by Pieta, the same exact company with nearly sequential serial numbers. It is absolutely identical. Any part would interchange, and it will look exactly like the Baldwin gun.
Did you also bring a replica gun?
Yes, I did.
And can you tell the jury
The
just for
mouth
what
are
that
off.
is?
This is a Denex replica. Denex is a company in Spain that makes replicas of anything from shotguns to antique weapons to swords, things like that. They're used by reenactors. They're used in movies. There was a Denex revolver on the set of Rust that was used as one of the dummy guns. There were in fact 10 non-firing replica guns on the set that looked like
Which
this.
Alex should have had
So
in
it
his
can't shoot, but
hand.
it looks like it functions. It counts the cylinder turns, and from 5 feet away you couldn't tell unless you were really good.
Okay, sir. Let me, if I can. Yes, I was going to ask at this time, Your Honor, if I could tender him as an expert in the categories I previously did.
Well, why don't you state them on the record again?
I was making sure I had the exact wording. Is that okay if you wrote those down? Because I don't want to change it. I'll just say it again. It's firearm
I hate
identification,
him so much.
firearm functioning, reloading of ammunition, and identification of ammunition, of dummy rounds and live rounds.
Any objection?
No objection within the confines of what we discussed at the bench.
All right, thank you.
Yes, I understand. So, sir, if you will, I'm sorry.
For these specific areas, subject to ruling up at the bench. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. Sir, if you will, if you could.
And here is a Denex revolver.
All right, first of all, everybody's nervous because you have not demonstrated to us that they're unloaded. So before you start showing us the weapons, make sure they're unloaded, including that one that you just touched.
You're kidding me, right? Are you kidding me? He literally did just point it at the judge. The bailiff had to push it back down. And he barely looks like he knows how to freaking use it. He could barely open it. Oh my gosh. Why is it no sound? Is it supposed to be no sound? Yeah, I guess so. Okay, so he has the guns. Okay. We got that part. I don't know why the sound went out, if it was me or if it was the video, but okay. They were on sidebar. Okay, thank you, Kimmy. I was like, what the heck? It happened like immediately too. I was not expecting to see that. I'm glad I was not just listening to it. I didn't realize they were also on sidebar. I thought he was explaining what he was doing. But I wasn't expecting that to happen. And I probably would have just been on listen mode and would have missed it. So shout out to Kimmy for sending that over to me. Yeah, out of control. So let me go ahead and pull up the reply, which Kimmy gave me the link to that one too. Control. Copy. And let's see. I'm trying to get it together, y'all, for y'all. Okay. Let me go ahead and share it. We are on the right page. We are on the right sound, and we are in full screen. So let's go ahead and have Bossy transition us over to the state's reply. Whoa, it's getting hot in here. I'm tired. Let's go ahead and share it. There we go. Let's see my girl get fired.
Hannah didn't know there was a live round on set. I agree. If Hannah knew there was a live round on set and she loaded it into a prop gun and it was used to kill Halyna Hutchins, she wouldn't be charged with involuntary manslaughter. She'd be charged with second-degree murder.
Yeah.
She'd be charged with first-degree depraved mind murder.
Oh my gosh.
This is an involuntary manslaughter charge.
Oh.
Because she didn't know there were live rounds on set, and the reason she didn't know was through her own negligence, her own recklessness, her own willful disregard for the safety of other people.
That the state
That willful disregard, that lack of care for the safety of other people that you have seen throughout this trial. It is shocking. For Mr. Bowles to come up to this podium and say it wasn't
Missed
foreseeable that Alec Baldwin was going to go off script and pull the hammer and pull the trigger. He showed you a video of Alec Baldwin going off script. Alec Baldwin went off script. Hannah Gutierrez knew it. She was there. Hannah Gutierrez knew that Baldwin
Everything I got.
was loose. She knew it. She didn't do anything about it, even though it was her job. It was her job. It is her job to say to an A-list actor, if in fact that's what you want to call him, hey, you can't behave that way with those firearms. That is her job. That is what they pay her for. That is the job that she applied for. That is the job that she accepted.
Mr. Bowles got to sit there and lick his lips because he is.
You want to talk about off script? Just remember those videos of the stuntman. That's not within the script. She was there. She watched it. She knew these people would go off script. You know she didn't check the rounds. If she checked the rounds, they would have been floating around that movie set the entire time, undetected. Give you everything we've got. You have absolutely everything we have. This law enforcement team and this team of prosecutors have reviewed thousands and thousands and thousands of photos and thousands of videos. We have interviewed countless people, many of whom you didn't even hear from. We can't stay here forever. You have absolutely everything you need. One of the amazingly shocking things about this case to me has always been, and it's to Detective Hancock's credit, a defense attorney with his own agenda, no question, comes to her and says, it's Seth Kinney, it's Seth Kinney, it's Seth Kinney. That's his job. Okay, let's make that clear. That's Mr. Bowles' job. He gets Hannah's dad to say, it's Seth Kinney, it's Seth Kinney, it's Seth Kinney. Rather than ignore them, she gets a search warrant. She took his speculative agenda, presented it to a judge, got a search warrant, and searched that man's property. And oh my heavens, what did they find? They found exactly what Thel Reed said they would find. They found live ammunition with semi-wide cutter projectiles. You have everything you have. You have everything we have. You have everything you will ever need to convict her. This is 100% foreseeable. Hannah Gutierrez is not a scapegoat. Hannah Gutierrez is not being treated as a scapegoat.
You had a job.
Mr. Halls was charged criminally. To his credit,
he
took an early plea and he got the benefit of that. Mr. Baldwin has now been indicted. Everyone with criminal culpability has been criminally charged in this case. She's not being scapegoated. She is being treated like everyone else. She is not being given a break because she's a woman. She is not being given a break because she's young. Because that's not how the law works.
She's not very happy with that. No, you're not.
Let me just review my notes real quick. And as I promised you, I am going to try to speed this up for you. Please keep in mind, Mr. Bowles comes up to the podium and says Sarah Zachary threw rounds away. She did. Obviously, she did. She admitted it. She told law enforcement that she did it. And rather than try to prosecute her for tampering with evidence, for panicking and throwing some rounds away, she agreed to come in and testify. And her agreement is that she must testify truthfully. And she testified truthfully. You want to know why we don't have an inertia puller in evidence? Why we don't have a box of dummies that Ms. Gutierrez said she brought on set? She said she brought 2 boxes. We've only got 1. You want to know why? Because she went to the prop truck on October 23rd, got access to it, took a bunch of gun belts and a couple of boxes.
Ooh. It's not evidence in the record. If nobody actually testified to it, it's all that's speculative. So they might have to disregard that. But guess what? They already heard it. They already heard it. So they can tell them to disregard it all they want to. Look how the judge is looking at Baldy. She's about tired of him. Okay, she's just listening. I thought she was tired of him. That's just her face. Okay, makes sense. Let's see if she gets to keep it.
Where were we? She took stuff out of the prop truck. She took gun belts. You heard from Sarah Zachary that those were gun belts that she brought from another movie set that were already loaded with dummy rounds. Who knows what was in them? So I want to make sure that we understand what reasonable doubt means. Reasonable doubt means the doubt must be reasonable. It is not a reasonable doubt to cast suspicion on Brian Norvell. It is not a reasonable doubt to cast suspicion on Seth Kinney. All investigative leads were exhausted. He simply didn't do anything wrong. You want to talk about scapegoating? That's the guy that got scapegoated. The doubt must be reasonable. And I don't have to prove this case beyond all possible doubt. If that is what the law required, my heavens, we live in a world of infinite possibilities. The government would never be able to prove a case beyond all possible doubt. We'd have to have a video of absolutely everything that took place. It's not the standard. It doesn't have to be the standard. So when you're back there and you're talking about doubt, make sure it's a reasonable one under this set of circumstances. You know, Mr. Bowles says to you, these production outfitters were just from one day. That's right. All that happened in one day. Imagine what all the other days were like. That was one day.
That was a good point to make. Only one day and all.
Mr. Balls is
that?
right. The crew didn't believe there were live rounds on set. They believed that she was going to do her job.
Yeah,
They believed that she did her job.
did.
This isn't Seth Kenny's responsibility to inventory rounds, although he did it. That wasn't his responsibility. Rust Productions didn't provide all of the dummy rounds to the set of this movie. You know from her own statements she brought 2 boxes on herself. We're not living in an alternate reality. All right.
Both look so mad. Because he should be mad. He should be embarrassed that he got up there and said that.
When you all go back into the jury deliberation room, you will have your own copy. So you certainly will have a copy to reference. These are some of the instructions that are important to us. Your verdict should not be based on sympathy or prejudice. Sympathy or prejudice? Huh? Oh. Oh, I see. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. So it can't be based on sympathy or prejudice. And for any of you who are feeling sympathetic, because she is young and she is maybe inexperienced, although by her own statement to Detective Hancock, she would tell you she wasn't. You all are on this jury because during voir dire, you agreed to follow the law. And I will ask you to do it right now. If you had said during voir dire, I can't follow the law, I feel too sympathetic, you wouldn't be here. And if you can't follow the law, you can probably excuse yourselves.
Ooh, not you can go home. Hannah's asking him to make an objection. He told her no.
Skip that one.
She's really trying to direct her
You must
whole
not concern yourselves
trial.
with the consequences of your verdict. That is the law. That is the law that you agreed to follow. That is the law that you are required to follow. Hannah Gutierrez endangered the safety of another by handling or using a firearm in a negligent manner. There can be absolutely no doubt. That happened. Hannah Gutierrez should have known of the danger
Agreed.
involved by her actions. Yeah, she knew. This was
Agreed.
completely foreseeable. She was trained in firearms. She knows what we all know. Guns can kill you. You got to be really careful. Her act caused the death of Halyna Hutchins.
Hannah trying so
12A
hard
is the
not to
alternative
do that.
theory. And so let me explain to you that 12 and 12A are alternatives. You must make a decision about guilt or innocence unanimously to the count, not to the alternatives. So 6 of you can say, I think she's guilty of 12, but not 12A. Another 6 of you can say, we think she's guilty of 12A, but not 12. Done. You're done. Hannah Gutierrez loaded live ammunition into a firearm. Yes, she certainly did. She told the police she did. She
So it
failed to
sounds
perform
like
an
they
adequate
just
safety check
have
of the
more
ammunition. Of
people
course, you
thinking
know
of,
that. She didn't do it just
12
once. She did it numerous times.
12A.
She acted with willful disregard for the safety of others, without question. So you are being presented with what's called a lesser included offense. And I will remind you the instructions that the judge read you at the beginning. Your first job is to see if you can agree on involuntary manslaughter. If you find her guilty of involuntary manslaughter on either alternative, you do not move on to this misdemeanor. It's done. If you find her not guilty of involuntary manslaughter, then you get to move on to the misdemeanor.
Oh, I confused. I thought that there was just
You've heard a lot about that. I'll skip
one
it.
theory and then a misdemeanor. But okay, I see what I was.
This is what we call a general criminal intent instruction, and I want to just make sure that you understand this instruction only applies to the tampering with evidence. It does not apply to the involuntary manslaughter because she is charged with negligent homicide, not
Again,
intentional.
intent is not as. Oh, she's mad. She keeps turning to her attorney like, do something.
Very importantly, are the proximate cause jury instructions. These jury instructions are what allows you to find Ms. Gutierrez guilty, even though Mr. Baldwin may have also been a significant cause of the death of Halyna Hutchins. So let's go through it. The death was a foreseeable result of Hannah Gutierrez placing a live round into a firearm. Of course it was.
Yes.
The act of the defendant was a significant cause of the death of Halyna Hutchins. The defendant's act was a significant cause of death if it was an act which, in a natural and continuous chain of events, uninterrupted by an outside event, resulted in the death, and without which the death would not have occurred. She brought a bunch of live rounds on set, accidentally, but negligently. She loaded one of them into a prop gun, and this was after they were loaded into Jensen Ackles' gun belt and Alec Baldwin's holster. And she told Dave Halls, this is a cold gun. He told the crew, it's a cold gun. At that point, everyone certainly assumed that there wasn't a live round. She knew Baldwin would go off script. She didn't have prop duties to tend to. She walked out. And even if she had been there, it wouldn't have made a difference because you have seen the incredible lack of control that she exercised as the only person on the movie set in charge of firearms. There is no intervening event. If you think the intervening event is that Baldwin manipulated the gun, that's the whole purpose of the prop. He's going to manipulate it. You saw a bunch of other actors do it. Very importantly, there may be more than one significant cause of death. If the acts of 2 or more persons significantly contribute to the cause of death, each act is a significant cause of death.
Yes, exactly.
If you think Baldwin's act was a significant cause of death, that's okay. You can still convict her.
Yep. That's it. Other people are still responsible. Not her paralegal or whoever she is over there making the stink face.
If you find the negligence of a person other than the defendant was the only significant cause of death or constitutes an intervening cause that breaks the foreseeable chain of events, the defendant is not guilty. Well, that's not this case. She brought the live rounds on set. She put a live round in a prop gun. That's the reason that Ms. Hutchins is dead. One of at least 2 reasons.
That's a good point. I think Baldwin and Hannah are the most.
I will again thank you very much for your time and for your attention. I know that this has been hard work for you folks. I will ask you to find Ms. Gutierrez guilty of involuntary manslaughter and tampering with evidence. And I will ask you to bring some justice to Halyna Hutchins. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Instruction number 22, I will now ask you to retire.
Hannah is pissed off. Man, is it worth watching the verdict? Is it worth watching the verdict? Let me know in the chat if you want me to watch the verdict while I wait for the answers in the chat. Let's go ahead and have Bossy bring us over to what the chat has to say so far with the reply. But before we get into that, we are now at 56 likes, so we are well beyond our like goal for the stream. So shout out to the Bree High for that. Let's go ahead and jump into the chat, see what the people have to say. Upside Down says, Seth recommended Hannah watch Sarah's first interview from a year ago. She said she was being trained. As far as, but she still, I know we're still on the other topic. She still testified to being a armorer. If she misspoke, she misspoke, but she did testify that she was an armorer. 18-1 says, going to meth, the preferred drug of 1940s German leaders, not a good idea in my honest opinion. I mean, which one's better, cocaine or meth? I don't know. I haven't tried them. I think Dark Sarah says, I don't like this prosecutor, but that Baldwin shade was A-okay. Yes. No, the shade was good. A-list actor, if that's what you want to call him. If that's what you want to call him, is wild. Upside Down says, Baldwin is famous for going off script. The weapon should have been cold, meaning there was nothing in the chamber. And I don't know if it needed to be all the way cold, but at least something that can't fire. Like, how do you have 2 misfires a couple days before, and then you have a bullet fire? And again, the theory that her coworkers hate her so much that they are setting her up like this is wild. That's a big stretch, in my opinion. Dark Sarah says, no, it was testified to. Yes, that she was an armorer. She did testify to that. Sarah did. Long Lumber says, honeycomb pin, come and DM me for an address. Okay, that makes sense. That would be a cool pin for the stream. And thank you for the super chat too. Kimmy Lockett says, at the end of the day, I think the most darning evidence it was Hannah's own statements, which were compounded by the fact I can't decide if Baldy's performance was worse during the interview or the trial. I just don't think he's good at all. He offered more evidence that he then had to try to disprove in the trial. I don't know either. I don't know either. Dr. Sarah says, yes, please watch the verdict. Okay, I will. Kimmy Locker says, I'm down for the verdict, but mostly because I want to see you react to how unprepared Baldy was to argue Hannah shouldn't be remanded. Okay. Do you know what time that starts at? Okay, they deliberated, blah, blah, blah. Is it in the same one? Oh, yeah. Yes. No more deliberations. I'm thinking it's on a different stream, right? I think Kimmy got it for us in the back. Okay, here we go. Verdict. Thank you. Shout out to Kimmy. Kimmy always has the timestamps for me. Shout out to Kimmy. Okay. Copy. And then let's go ahead and do this one.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's make it loud. I got to get better at sharing the screen. I feel like it's so difficult to get my life together to share the screen properly. Okay, here we go with the verdict.
And of the jury, through the foreperson, have you reached a verdict?
Yes.
All right, and do you wish to read the verdicts?
Sure.
Okay, I would start with count one.
Fast forward it.
Okay, you have both of them. Will the defendant please stand?
Think she's nervous at all?
We find the defendant, Halyna Gutierrez, guilty of involuntary manslaughter as charged in count 1. We find the defendant, Halyna Gutierrez, not guilty of tampering with evidence as charged in count 2.
All right, thank you. You didn't let me get those forms, retrieve those forms from you. I'm going to do what's called polling the jury. What I need to put on the record is that this is your individual verdict, okay?
Okay, I'm not going to listen to the individual verdict because they're all going to say yes because they found her guilty, right? So we're not going to do that part, but we are going to jump right into the reprimand. Let me just get my sharing capabilities together here. Boom. Boom.
All right, is there any?
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Am I already sharing it? No. Yes, I am actually. Okay, here we go. Reprimand. We're getting it right into the reprimand. So the verdict is guilty of involuntary manslaughter, and then reprimand part of it.
Anything that the state's requesting based upon the verdict?
We would request that Ms. Gutierrez be taken into custody.
Mr. Bowles?
Your Honor, we would request under, pull up the rule, Your Honor.
Not you pulling it up on your phone, sir. Hannah, are you embarrassed?
Your Honor, Rule 5402, release pending sentencing. In this court's discretion, under the same conditions or other conditions as this court would.
I'm sorry. I keep saying reprimand. Sorry.
Ms. Gutierrez has been on conditions. She has not violated those conditions. She has voluntarily appeared at all court proceedings. Your Honor, I would request this court to continue conditions or whatever conditions this court would have on release.
All right, thank you. I'm going to remand you, and the reason why I'm going to remand you is you are now convicted. And so, and this is a death. It's a criminal negligence, but it's still a death. And so, deputies, you're going to take her into custody, and we will set a sentencing date. What is the best, what do you want to look like on that? And we need an order of remand, do we? Okay. Counsel?
In terms of the sentencing date?
Yes.
At the court's convenience will be available. There are 2 weeks in May that I'm unavailable. Those are the last 2 weeks of May.
All right, Mr. Bowles?
Your Honor, as soon as this court has time, we will be available.
All right, so do you have any conflict like that? She said, hey, do you have any conflict?
I don't know for sure, Your Honor, but I do have other trials, but I think mid-May.
Well, I can do it sooner.
Okay.
I just wondered if you had any conflicts along the way.
Doesn't look like mid-May, Your Honor. I don't think I have any conflicts.
I'm sorry, not understanding. Do you have, okay, we're in March. Do you have time before May?
We have time.
Said he has other trials.
All right, anything else before?
Doesn't need to do any more trials.
Oh, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Where do we say?
Yeah. Okay. She gave the phone, and she gave her. Now you're rubbing her back. Yeah. So he doesn't even arrest her. He just walks her outside. He can't even open the door. Come on now. No, that's embarrassing. I'm sorry to her. No, I'm not that. I don't feel that bad for her. Her attorney was full of BS. So no, I don't feel that bad for her. Stop applying for jobs you're not qualified for. Okay? Don't go find bullets in your dad's garage and bring them to set. I don't feel bad for her. So we don't have a sentencing date yet, according to this. I don't know if something else has come out since then, but yeah, he like pulled up the law for remand on his phone. Kimmy Lockett says, I'm down for the verdict, but mostly because I want to see you react to how unprepared Baldy was to argue Hannah shouldn't be remanded. He didn't. He just said, according to this law, it's in the court's discretion. She hasn't violated her rules before. Yeah. Not a good argument. Just like, yeah, I'm going to remand her. Just Me MD says Hannah is making that face you make when you realize I'm going to jail. Oh yeah, she was. She knew. Skull Cram says, were there more than one live round in the gun? 1 out of 6 is pretty long odds of first pulled fire. I don't know if he pulled it. He could have done it more than once for all we know. It wasn't recorded how many times he did it. But according to, I believe there was only 1 live round in there, at most maybe 2. Because they emptied the gun and then put some of the rounds on the belt, some in the pocket. It was just kind of all over the place. So I believe there was only that 1, but no one can really testify to whether he pulled it twice, or more than once, other than Baldwin, and he hasn't been put on trial yet. Upside Down says cold would be a non-firing weapon. Yeah, he should have had a plastic gun. Skull Cram says there was never a need for a firearm to be on set that day. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think they could have gave him the replica gun. They kept saying, oh, well, Baldwin likes his toys. Grow up. He's like, how old is he? He doesn't need any toys. Gabrielle says, does the 4-person read the verdict in your jurisdiction? I am not a criminal attorney. I'm sure they do. Or either the clerk does, or the judge does, or the jury 4-person does. But for me, I'm not in criminal court, so the judge just reads the verdict. We don't have a jury. Upside Down says, I can't believe the judge remanded her. Really? What did you guys want? Y'all just wanted her to be free until sentencing? At least she's probably going to get some time served. Her attorneys look so concerned standing in the corner like, bro, what happened? Look at them. The mom's so sad, though. Oh, it's okay. Let me not judge people's lives. I've been on live stream for 3 hours, y'all. What's going on? Okay. Kimmy Locker says to Upside Down, I didn't expect that at all, and wonder if it might have been so the judge can give her time to serve. Yeah, I'm thinking she's gonna get some time served. Gabrielle George says her mom seemed distraught about the custody. Yeah. She was kind of surprised on the verdict too, but she probably thought she was going to at least get to take her daughter home, have dinner with her before she goes to jail. Sarah Darth says, I can't either. I agree with the verdict 100%, but being remanded seems wrong, especially as Halls never saw a cell and Seth and Sarah were just ignored. And the thing about it is she didn't take her own plea deal. She didn't have to see a cell either, but she decided not to take a plea deal. Skullcram says Hannah is just New Mexico's whipping boy. I don't agree with that. Somebody died. Like I get that y'all feel bad for her maybe, but somebody died. 18 months compared to Halyna probably wasn't even 50 yet. She had a lot of years left on her. A lot of years left for her, making her sound like a car. Maximum of 18 months. She'll be okay. She will be okay, but I think she's going to get some time served anyways. Darth Sarah says they should have waited until sentencing. They could have, but like she said, it's a death. Alexandra, I can't say the last name, so it says, yes, he did. The phone usage in the trial was mind-boggling. Oh, that he kept using his phone? Yeah. Yeah. Kimmy Locker says to Alexandra, not just by body, but witnesses used the phone. Like what? I don't know what they had going on there. Alexandra said how the judge has to talk him into doing the verdict as early as possible when he was fully okay with leaving his client in jail until June. Oh, that is funny. I didn't even catch that. The lady was like, she has 2 weeks unavailable. The prosecutor said, I have 2 weeks unavailable in May. And then he goes, I think I have some trials, but I could do May. And she's like, well, I could do it earlier. He's like, no, I think May sounds okay. What are you talking about? If you do it earlier, she can get sentenced and potentially get out of jail earlier. Oh, that was a good one. I didn't even catch that. Gabrielle says, watch her mom shout in the courtroom. Oh, I didn't see that. Let's see. Is there more? Let's see. I'm kind of fast forwarding it. Oh, that's her shouting. Oh, God. They're going to have to escort her out. She probably said, "You guys got it wrong." I don't know what she could have said right there. I don't know what she could have said right there, but I saw her kind of throwing a tantrum there. Okay, let me stop sharing the screen here. Lauren Lumber says, okay, signing off for the night, Bree. Don't forget to send me the address so I can send you a custom Bree Hive pin. Okay, thank you. I will sign into X, Twitter. Thank you for stopping by and supporting the channel too. Upside Down says, I think she found lives pulled them and then forgot set to get I'm sorry, y'all. My throat is like closing up. Set to get chaotic, especially for a newbie. She could have testified to that, though. She got interviewed multiple times, so I don't think so. I don't think so. Kimmy says to Upside Down, she should have shut the set down if lives are found. Yeah, agreed. 18-1 says to Skull Cram, if she had done her job ensuring the weapon was indeed cold, this would have never happened. Agreed. While Alec is also liable, so is Hannah. It's not a superseding cause for Alec to be a dum-dum and pull a gun trigger. Soil Crime says, sorry, but a real gun is never cold. There's ways to do it on the set. Katal says, I think Bowles really thought they would win. He looked shook. He was very confused on how he didn't win. I agree. 81 says the Skull Cram. In movie terms, it means either empty or loaded with dummies. Hot in the movie terms mean at least one blank. Yeah. Good call. Okay. I was able to tell when it was sped up. Okay. I watch it on sped up. I'm sorry, Kimmy. I gotta go to bed. I know some of y'all are up late on your side of town, but I'm up really late on my side of town of 10:30 past my bedtime. Thank you for everyone that joined the live stream. This was a fun one. I'm glad everyone came and participated. I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend, and I will see y'all all on the next live stream. Bye. Oh, and also, thank you for getting us to 58 likes. Shout out to us. We surpassed our stream like goal, which was just 40 for the live stream. We are 18 past that. So shout out to the Bree Hive. And again, have a good weekend, and I will see y'all all on the next live stream. Bye.